Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the season finale of Season 11 in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we have made our way to our final destination. After 9 incredible rounds of racing action, we have arrived at round 10 of 10 and we are here at none other than the Autodromo Enzo Dino Ferrari, more commonly known as the Imola Circuit, in reference to the local town, to see who will exactly be taking the crown across our 5 championships. We already have our champion in the elite class, of course, none other than Tseard Ploeg, who absolutely delivered more than he needed to do last time out at the Misano Grand Prix circuit in order to be able to seal the crown. But we still have questions as to who will be our Pro, Premier and Evo champions. And let's not forget, of course, the all-important Teams Championship. And that's what we're here to find out tonight as we bring you all the racing action live from circuit side in the broadcast of Split A. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action live from circuit side is, of course, none other on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International, or SRI, and you can catch all the race action on a weekly basis from all of our series. And if you're not subscribed today to the channel, why not do so? And that way you can stay up to date and therefore informed as when each and every broadcast does occur. In the comment if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and as always I'll be bringing you all your race action from Split A. And if you want to keep a keen eye on what's going on exactly in Split B as well, good news for you, we have 2 broadcasts running in parallel, whereby Split B's broadcast covering the Premier and Evo classes is currently running at the moment as well, and that's in the very capable hands of none other than Chaz Draycott and Dara Thacker. Meanwhile, you're with myself here in the Split A realm, where we're bringing all the racing action covering the elite and the pro classes. But what a circuit we have for our season finale, of course, the Imola Circuit. A circuit which has been around for the test of time ever since 1953. A circuit that once was seen as an alternative to the power-focused circuit of Monza. Indeed, whilst Monza may be the Italian temple of speed, this has definitely proven to be just as quick a circuit in the past, if not even quicker. However, over its extensive history, it has been refined on several occasions, all for the grounds of safety, and perhaps the most notable set of renovations come in as a result of the infamous 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, where all went wrong for so many on that day, or indeed that weekend we should say, because everybody does remember, of course, the infamous passing of Ayrton Senna at Tosa Bend, but few remember the passing of Roland Ratzenberger on the day before, and indeed one of the darkest days in motorsport, let alone Formula 1, and there were so many other things that happened on that day that Imola had to go for a major overhaul when it came to safety and procedure, and that's what's led to today. This circuit, 3.05 miles in length, 17 corners, and one that has gone from a power circuit about sweeping bends all into a stop-start style of racing circuit, whereby it's all about the run to the next heavy braking zone, and with multiple chicanes breaking up the previous what was curves, all 30 long straights. Here's one of those circuits as well, where the thrill is seeing who exactly is going to outrun their rival to the next braking zone. And it's no wonder why it's a regular host of the likes of Formula 1, the World Endurance Championship, or GT World Challenge Europe in this modern day and age. But as we sprint away into this season finale, why don't we bring you up to speed with regards to all what occurred last time out at Misano and how the championships stand after 9 rounds of racing in Split A. So to do so, ladies and gentlemen, let's lead the way. And as we can see, here's a recap of our calendar for Season 11. We have made our way around the globe. We opened up, of course, in the heartland of Europe, in Germany at the Sachsenring, the full course playing host all the way back on the 8th of January. It's crazy to think it has been 2 months, or just over, since we started, but here we are. It is the 12th of March today. We've been to the Sachsenring, we've been to Daytona in the US of A, we then made our way back to Portugal for the Portimao circuit. Then to wrap up the first month of the year on the 29th of January, where I celebrated my birthday alongside all you guys, of course, by bringing you all the racing from Miami. And what a day it was there at the Miami International Autodrome. But then after that, we made our way to the Monza combined circuit, a very different style of racing at Monza, where it definitely was GT3s meets NASCAR meets Monza. And we got to see some incredible racing action on the 5th of February, before we then made our way into the second half of the season on the 12th of February at the Virginia International Raceway. Then on the 19th of February, it was Bathurst there, the trial of being the king of the mountain, and we got to see some first-time winners there, some incredible racing, no doubt about it, over the mountain, our 2 sprint races, and then we made our way back to Germany for the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstrecke, with its Grand Prix layout there, definitely bewitching our drivers with regards to its curves and also its chicanes. But last time out, on the 5th of March, we were in round number 9 of 10, and we were in Italy. We began our journey here in this country, and none other than Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli, and there in our, what is our final pair of sprint races, our 2x30 combination with mixed conditions as well, the third of our mixed condition race rounds. What exactly did we get to see? Well, firstly, in the elite class, as we mentioned only moments ago, we got to see Tseard Ploeg take his championship crown. Now, all he needed to do to wrap up the title comfortably there was score the best part of 63 points. But he did an absolutely brilliant job there of going well beyond it and almost achieving the perfect score by taking a win and a second place. The win coming, of course, in the first race today after a very close battle with none other than what was the man who has yet to take a win this season in the elite class, Ryan Nickerson. Albeit, there was a brilliant battle between the pair of them all the way through the race, with Nickerson losing out in the early stages despite making an absolutely treacherous move around the outside returns 1, 2 and 3 that caught Ploeg off guard. However, only a late later, it would be Ploeg who would take the lead back off of him, and in the closing stages, when we did see the rain continue to shift back and forth, and the circuit was definitely started to prove very wet, but at the very end, we got to see Nickerson really coming alive, and in those final stages, a brief bit of contact between the pair, and in the end, Nickerson took the lead. But in the ultimate test of gentlemanly sportsmanship, we saw Ryan Nickerson give up the lead with only 50 metres to the finish line. It was so close. That first win of his campaign, his first ever league here at SimRacing International, and in the end, he gave up the lead and gave it back to Tseard Ploeg, knowing he didn't want to take the victory unfairly, and Ploeg was so in awe at the sportsmanship, he even talked about it in his post-round interview, saying that if most drivers could be like Ryan Nickerson, SimRacing would be a much happier place. But after that incredible end to race number 1 in the elite class, what did we see in race number 2? Well, we saw plenty more battling action, no doubt about it, and Ryan Nickerson once again was right at the forefront of all the madness that played out. But it would be William Humphrey who took victory in a little bit of a contentious ending to the race as they made their way into the final 3 quarters. A little bit of a tank slapper coming on for Ryan Nickerson, the leader. The rear of the car started to let go, and what we got to see was William Humphrey tap him on the rear there with no real room to manoeuvre, and unfortunately sent Nickerson around, and William Humphrey in the end had nowhere to go other than to go on to take victory. But as our stewards have taken a look at it, they have deemed it a racing incident, and therefore everything has moved on, and the win has stood for William Humphrey. And you can understand why, of course, because in the heat of the moment, when he only had millimetres between himself and the back of Nickerson's car, did he really have time to react? The answer may have been no. But that was what happened in Elite. Meanwhile, in the Pro Class, you could not have made up what happened in the Championship. And you know what we're going to do, ladies and gents? We're not going to talk about the Championship standings just yet. We're going to talk about your winners last time out in the Pro Class. And the wins were split between the Belv Racing Team drivers, whereby it was in race number 1, none other than Ville Katonen, taking his first win of the season all the way since round number 2's race number 1 at Daytona all that time ago. And meanwhile, in the second race of the day, it was going to be none other than Nicholas Carlson, his teammate. Now, of course, Carlson had a lot of difficulty at the start of race number 1, whereby whilst the pair enjoyed a 1-2 in qualifying in their class, but unfortunately for Carlson, he was swarmed and swallowed whole by a number of pro drivers, including none other than Jamie Bardwell and Stephen Donnelly. Meanwhile, it was in the second race of the day, which is where we saw Nicholas Carlson really come alive, and then he was able to take the lead early on in the class and never look back, making sure to put plenty of elite drivers between himself and his rivals. And whilst Fotis Katios looked to charge very strongly early on, and only spin for him costing the chance of a win, and we also got to see none other than Stephen Donnelly having difficulty after getting into a bit of an altercation with Benedictus Singavicius with only a few laps to go. So that's a recap of your winners from last time out, and here we are today to see who are going to be our final 60-minute race winners in round 10 of 10 here on the 12th of March at the Imola Grand Prix circuit. But if that's the victories and the big headlines from last time out, well, let's tell you a little bit about the season standings coming into this season finale then. We begin with the Elite Drivers' Championship, and here we can see Tseard Ploeg on 676 points, with the fact he does have a drop score enshrined within there. He is your champion. He cannot be caught today because remember, this final round is undroppable. They can take a maximum of 100 points away from this round, so therefore it does mean that if you take 100 off of him, he would have 576, and he cannot be caught with a comfortable advantage over Hayden Miller to the best part there of 203 points. So therefore, the big headline of the elite class in the championship is who is going to finish second. It's only a point between Hayden Miller and William Humphrey, with Humphrey of course having the momentum for last time out with a 5th and a 1st. Meanwhile for Hayden Miller, it was a dismal day at Misano. Misano's always been a little bit of a landmine for him, and right now only a point ahead. He'll be looking to go for gold for Vulcan Motorsports. How the Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing drive definitely trying to ride his wave of momentum, but both drivers of course have had a very shaky season. But do not forget the man in fourth, Ryan Nickerson, still chasing that first win, and when we spoke to him last time out, remember what he said, he's aiming for the win today. He wants to end this season with his first win, and well, he's looking quite quick in practice today, and we'll see how he's getting on in qualifying shortly. But he is to the tune of the points gap, none other than what is 33 points behind Hayden Miller, and therefore he's got a little bit more work to do. Lewis Kenyon is still in the hunt as well for what could be second place. race. However, he's going to need a landslide result here, and he's going to need his rivals to drop the ball. As right now, sat in 5th there on 426 points. It's been a long time since we've seen him on the podium. You'd have to go all the way back to round number 3 for last time he was on the podium with 2nd place. Benedictus Sinkevicius as well, chasing down a top 5 in the championship, as he mentioned a couple of rounds ago. But right now, he's given himself a very difficult task to do so after what was a missing of the podium last time out in race number 2 at Misano. Milton Tomlinson Dennis, or MTD, as he's also known, of 353 points. Right now, his goal will be just have another happy day, albeit it hasn't been the happiest day in recent rounds, to be fair to him. We're 4th and a non-finish last time out, but can he end on a high after his car ended up in the barriers midway through the 2nd race at Misano? Tim Modig sits in 8th place at 233 points. He cannot catch the top 7 at this point, but to be fair to him, all he wants to do is stay ahead of the likes of Mark Hutchinson and also Brandon Dyer, who unfortunately won't be on the grid today due to technical issues as we understand it. And we do have Dan Edvardsen for Relentless Racing, head of Jesper Svensson for Heracles Performance, completing your elite top 12. But that's how the elite standings stand. What about in the pro class? And here we can see, in terms of your pros, well, there's one name who leads the way. But if we told you that Rhys Saunders was championship leader right now after taking a 13th place and a DNF in the 2 races at Misano, you'd be saying to me right now, surely there's a problem here. Well, no, because interestingly, Misano proved to be an absolute banana skin for everybody in the top 3 in the pro class. Rhys Saunders on paper had a nightmare day, and after his car ended up in the pit wall in race number 2, well, he pretty much got out of the car at that point, threw his helmet down and had his head in his hands. However, to be fair to the Altitude 3M esports driver, suddenly it was smiles at the very end, because for Fotis Katios, after an incredible run to 3rd place in race number 1, it all came undone with the open lap incident at turn number 8 that sent him all the way round into the very back of the field, and therefore he was not able to land any major points. Mikey Story as well, having a similar situation to the Split Splat esports driver, and only a point separating the turn right now, as the Dexterous Motorsports Quadra was able to achieve 2 top 10s, but it was a challenging qualifying performance for him, whereby in the end, all he was able to achieve in qualifying was 9th place in class, and he wasn't really able to make much progress at either race, and therefore it does mean right now, Rhys Saunders only needs to score 6 points today, and he will take the championship crown. And indeed, it has been one of those seasons that's definitely seen him dominate proceedings in the middle portion, but right now all he's got to do is get 6 points or more, and he's got the job done. And therefore the question will be, will it be Katios or will it be Story who takes up 2nd place? Presume it all goes well for all 3 drivers and it runs the normal course. Well, it's going to be anybody's guess who's going to be the runner-up at this rate, surely. Ville Kotonen, after a win and an 8th place last time out, the Beowulf Racing team driver right now has got a little bit further ahead of his teammate, Nicholas Carlson. Although it should be said, Nicholas Carlson now missed a few rounds this season, therefore has really gained as a result of his performances at Misano, and it does look as though Beowulf Racing team right now looking to seal the deal and locking everybody else out of the top 5. However, Menno Blym, he might have something to say about that after a 4th and 2nd last time out, albeit he couldn't quite catch up to Carlson in the late stages in race number 2 at Misano, but he's definitely catch up when it comes to points. He's on 418, only ahead of Wesley Van Rens based on result count. Back will win in the 2nd to Van Rens is 3rd. And then we do have Nathan Anstis there in 8th place, not in a happy day at Misano, whether it be on Sundays or Thursdays, the circuit definitely catching him out. Liam Fraser sits 9th there with a 9th for the 10th, and indeed right now looking to go for gold right at the end here, a circuit he's very familiar with is Imola. And then we do have Jamie Bardwell completing your top 10. Outside the top 10 from here, it's 357 points. We have Nick Stubb there on 324, and it's Stephen Donny wrapping up the top 12 of the pro class there with a 3rd and a 2nd last time out. Indeed, right now, building some momentum. He always goes well in mixed conditions, but how will he do in the dry today? Then coming to the team standings, last but by no means least, and here we can see it's between 2 teams primarily. At the very top is none other than Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Racing. They have retaken the lead. They had the better round compared to Dexterous Motorsports Quar, but we continue to see things swap back and forth, and the gap right now is a grand total of 39 points. It sounds small, but small points gaps can make the difference in the end. Whether it's a single point or 10, you win the championship either way, and that's exactly right now what Vulcan Fasters by Glass Racing will be hoping to do today, is hold on. Dexterous Motorsports Quar, they didn't enjoy the wet conditions by comparison, and therefore, they've got to try and rubber band themselves back into lead before this one is said and done. We then do see Vulcan Motorsports, meanwhile, in 3rd place there. And the combination pair of Benedictus Sinkevicius and Tseard Ploeg, they have an outside chance of the title, but they'll definitely be looking to make sure they finish 3rd. Albeit they are only 14 points ahead of Split Strat Esports, who moved from 5th to 4th. And they owe a huge amount of it to Nickerson's performances in both races at Misano. And also the 3rd place in Pro for race number 1 in the form of Fotis Katios. Then we do have Moonshiners Racing Club. They are only 9 points behind. They've dropped from 4th to 5th. It was a day of mixed results for them, particularly in Split B, but can they remain consistent to make sure they stay inside the top 5 and bring home a trophy? Because the team behind them by 11 points, Darkwing Racing there. Right now, they've dropped from 3rd to 6th. They had huge gains coming out of Germany in round number 8, but Misano brought them back down to earth. Indeed, it clipped their wings, but can they sprout a new set of wings before the season is over? Beowulf Racing team sit in 7th place with a huge number of points coming in for them. Their best pair of results of the season at Misano, and therefore right now they'll be hoping perhaps this is going to give them a chance to finish inside the top 5 right at the end, because if not, they're only 4 points ahead of GPX SimSport Onyx, and then we do have Axis SimSport Z a little bit further behind there, and Vulcan Motorsports 2. They have moved from 8th to 10th. They yo-yo back and forth, but last time out at Misano, it was not a happy day, and they are at risk of even finishing outside the top 10, because when you do consider that Phoenix Racing Red have dropped from 9th to 11th coming into this round, and they could have scored more if things had not gone wrong for Bardwell or Jamie Bardwell in race number 2 at Misano. They're only 5 points outside the top 10 and appearing on this screen, but will we see them now afterwards? Keep an eye on, of course, 10th through to 15th is separated by only 63 points in total. We could completely swap out a whole set of teams before this season is said and done. That's how close it is to being inside the top 10, and it's still close, of course, to make sure you finish inside that top 5 and bring home a team's Champions Trophy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a recap of the standings then coming into this season 5. Let's talk a little bit about our host circuit quickly. Here's, of course, the Imola Grand Prix circuit, located in the town of Imola in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy. 3.05 miles in length or 4.9 kilometers, depending on your preference units, but will never change the number of corners. 17 of them in total, and a huge training to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely brilliant track maps that come with it. And as we can see here on the two-dimensional image, there is a bit of elevation change, not shown of course, but what we do know is the number of chicanes. There's a grand total of 4 of them effectively, and that's exactly what our drivers will need to contest as they roar the way on through, where it be Tamburello at turns 2, 3 and 4, Villeneuve at turns 5, 6, then we do have the Tosa hairpin at turn number 7, the sweeping off camber left-hander at Piratella. Then it's into the effective chicane of Aquinarale at turns 9 and 10, while drivers make their way through a double right into a sharp left, before making their way up towards the 4th and final chicane. A variante all to the lowest speed pair of quarters there at turns 11 and 12, while the highest points of the circuit. And it's all downhill from there through the King of 13 in towards Ravazza 1 and 2 at 14 and 15, but they go flat out all the way down the start finish straight for the Kings of 16 and 17 to complete lap and do it all over again. But as we get ready to go racing, just a quick reminder as well, and we'll be talking about this more towards the end of today's broadcast, but Season 12's sign-ups are open, ladies and gents, and we can confirm that Season 12 will be starting on the 2nd of April 2026, so only just under a month away. We'll go into full detail about what's new for Season 12. There is a lot changing, but as you can see there in the top right corner of your screen, we will be introducing the Masters variant of our Thursday GT3 Championship for Season 12 and the Superstars variant. So therefore, we're going away from Split A and Split B to a degree, and we'll explain what exactly that means and why it's a whole new world of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship next time out, when we do return to the racing at the start of April. But stay tuned to the end of today's broadcast if you want to find out more about that. But in the meantime, keep that date in mind and make sure that you join the SimRacing International Discord when you see the link today at the end of the broadcast if you want to get on the grid for that, because sign-ups are open, but they are filling incredibly fast. But as quick as that, let's make our way back to circuit side then and see how all the drivers get it on in the final 15 minutes or so of qualifying. And so, here we go as we make our way back to circuit side. And as they all charge the way around right now, well, what's the big story out there? Well, we see Milton Tomlinson Dennis, currently the fastest of everybody in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. And we're looking good there. And the MTD machinery right now hoping for a good end to the season. Indeed, the World of Racing STR Esports driver has been a very quick driver out there. And you would argue if he'd had some better luck with his side, he should be a driver who'd be contesting the top 3 in the Elite Championship, if not a contender for the crown itself. Things have just not gone right whatsoever, and therefore right now he's definitely looking to pick up the pieces when it's all got a bit backwards. As we do say hello there to those of you who are looking forward to the race, of course, none other than Laura Jane 1306. Good evening to you, Laura. I hope you're doing well. We also do say hello there to Fenikisto, who says good evening, checking in early for the Beowulf boys, and we're very happy to have you. And in fact, you didn't quite make pole position. Laura beat you to pole, but Fenikisto, you made it to the front row of the chat grid there, coming in second in the chat. Glad to have you with us, and I think you were just out by a 10th there. As we also do say hello to Matt Jones, who says come on Glass Tech. And of course, if you want your Glass Tech racing tires, we've got you covered, because here is Mr. Stubby himself, Nick Stubb, as our number 69 driver makes his way on through. He was the fastest early on in this qualifying session, the first 15 minutes, but since then he has been brought back to ground a little bit in his Ford Mustang GT3, where Foytis Katios is just outshining him to a degree by the best part of 100th, and then Reece Saunders right now is looking to be the quickest of our pro drivers out there. His wonderfully covered Ford Mustang GT3. And well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, and this is making me a bit emotional about saying this right now about Rhys Saunders. Don't worry, he hasn't done anything bad. I know he does have a bit of a banterish reputation about him, but the fact of the matter is, as he admitted in an interview earlier on this season, some of you may remember, if he brings the title home in the Pro Class today, it will be the first time he has ever taken a title in a Sim Racing Championship. Now, I do believe he has been competing in Sim Racing leagues for the best part of at least 4, if not the last 6 years, as long as I can remember, and it's crazy to think a driver of his talent has yet to take a title. He's been runner-up on several occasions, but he's never done it. So therefore, well, today we could be seeing him take his first ever title, and what a way to do it across any series in Sim Racing, we should point out, not a SimRacing International, any series. That's why it means so much to him today, and I can tell you, when I caught up with him in the paddock in the build-up to this, he was just simply saying to me, all he wants is the 6 points. He doesn't care where he finishes, he just wants to get the car home and get the job done. He's that nervous right now, and it really shook him when things went wrong at Misano, but then again it also shook the likes of Fotis Katios as well, and also Mikey Story. And understandably, all 3 of the leading pro contenders, you wouldn't believe if I told you how they left Misano. All of them had their heads in their hands, how they felt about it, and especially for this man, the Split Straight Esports driver, he has given us so much entertainment this season, and his race 1 at Misano was incredible, the way he carved his way through the field in the early stages, but it all went wrong in race number 2, and it's been one of the situations this season. If you cut out Rhys Saunders from the championship in the Pro Class, this would be the man who would effectively be leading it with Mikey Story close by, but he has had that edge, but he hasn't had the outright pace that Saunders has had, and that's been the delta between them. But meanwhile, speaking of deltas right now, where is Mikey Story? He's all the way down here in 33rd or 14th, the number 14 car, but 21st there in the Pro Class. And right now for Mikey, whilst the first half of his season was definitely very strong, and he was a bit of a surprise element, particularly at Miami, where he outpaced both Saunders and Katios to the win in the first race today. Well, unfortunately, since then, it really hasn't been quite as much of a high there right now for the DXT Motorsports driver. But to be fair to him, he's been making sure to get consistent points for the team in the Team's Championship. As we do see a car pulling off the road there, that's Lewis Kenyon deciding to explore the grass. I think just trying to get clear, unless I'm mistaken. Although I'm not 100% certain about that, so don't quote me, because it did look as though that might have not actually been one of our none other than Vulcan Motorsports cars. But as he comes on down, we also do say hello there to Harvey Wheeler, who said, come on, Max Wheeler. We also do say hello there to Leon Sealims, who is cheering on none other than MTD. And we also do say hello there to none other than Samuel Clark for DXT, who's saying a skill issue there. And I'm not sure that's in reference to Rhys Saunders, alternatively to Mikey Story, but either way, good to have you with us, good sir, and I hope you're doing well. But coming back to the elite class, and well, to be fair, there's one man who, despite the fact he's already crowned himself champion with a round to spare, and the points add up to it, well, the Acura NSX Evo 22 of Tseard Ploeg is still hungry for more victories, and the 172 driver right now is only 6 thousandths off of the pole time provisionally set by Milton Tomlinson Dennis. That's how close this is going to be. They are really pushing the buck around here, and well, as Hayden Miller, meanwhile, is only a further 7 thousandths off that top 3. In fact, my good lord, the top 5. Ryan Nickerson is only 85 thousandths off of pole right now, and that puts you 5th. I mean, what does that say about the calibre of the competition? It says it is incredibly close around here, and then Rhys Saunders is only a further 800ths behind by comparison as your pro pole sitter at the moment, and he's got the best part of 3 tenths for himself at Nick Stubb. This is absolutely crazy. But as we do see Nickerson make his way on around, well, the one thing we definitely owe you, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than an on-board lap with one of our drivers. But who exactly will we get it with today? Well, we are waiting to see who's coming around. And in fact, you know what we should do? Given the fact he is now elite champion, let's get on board with him. In fact, no, we won't be able to there. He says no to that fault by coming into the pit lane. I promise you that wasn't scripted, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to have to look elsewhere for an on-board lap with one of our drivers. And, well, I believe Ross Young is starting to make his way towards the end of his current flying lap. And the DXT Motorsports driver here comes out of Ravazza 2. He's also having a little bit of an oversteer moment there, but he's going to carry on, trying to get some tyre temperature, in fact, there. So might not be the best driver to get on board with right now as he weaves his way down the start for this straight. And he's on an outlap, in fact, so he's going onto a first flyer. So he's still trying to get some tyre temperature there. This will essentially be another warm-up lap for him before he does go full attack. But we do seem to have a way of picking the right drivers to go with. But speaking of a driver who's doing all right on the night, here's Nicholas Carlson. And as he comes across the timing line, he's definitely now going for a flying lap. And let's jump aboard. So making his way down towards turn number 2 in his Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo from none other than Beowulf Racing Team. as he comes in towards turn number 2, then braking at the marshal's post on the right hand side, 150 metres a quarter apex, and coming down to second gear. Clattered the curbs there as he makes way for turns 1, 2, 3 and 4, and as he executes and completes of the chicane of Tosa, now heading up towards Villeneuve. But here decides, ooh, goodness me, pulls over immediately, not happy of that lap at all, so in the end decides to park it up, and well, something's definitely upset him. I think it was the way he hit the apex at turn number 2 there, went too high on the curb, and I wonder if that's done some damage to the suspension potentially, and as a result that's why he's coming. Perhaps he's had the call to say his wheels were knocked out of alignment. Indeed, these cars are quite sensitive if they hit those sausage curbs too high. But as we leave him, well, here comes Matthew Croft making his way on around here for Axis Simsport, and well, he gives a little bit of an oversteer monk going out to Ravazza. He goes on to another lap, and right now on an out lap, but he's going to be going onto a flying lap shortly, so let's fly on board inside his car as he heads on down the Mercedes AMG Evo 2020. Coming through the curvature of 1 then, and well, this V8 is going to be absolutely beastly on the straights. He breaks his way down in towards Tosa, coming through into Tamburello. Let's get the name of it right. And as he comes his way through turns 2, 3 and 4, well, now roaring his way onwards and up towards the Villeneuve chicane he goes. Now keeping the car over to the right hand side here, and as he does, you'll notice he'll brake at the 50 metre board, chuck the car into left-hander, keep it nice and tight, over to left, open up turn number 6. Nice run there, and now up towards Tosa hairpin he goes. Now put onto the brakes here, about 125 minutes of corner apex trail, braking all the way down to second gear. Some cars will go to first, but not the Mercedes drivers. They won't want the rear wheel spin, which will guide them around the corner too aggressively, and now heading up towards Piratella. Coming over the hill, bring the car over to the right hand side here and brake at the 50 metre board, and this is all about your line here. He needs to stay within the track limits, just about does so there. He's got to be careful going any wider than that. Now into Aquadarale. Here it is, either lift off the throttle or dab the brakes slightly and then hard on the brakes into turn number 10, get the weight pitch forward as much as possible, and now stamp the throttle as you can up the hill, and you've got to use all that engine power to get you to the ultra chicane as quickly as possible. But now looking to the left hand side here and braking between the 50 and the 100 boards, about 70 meters a quarter apex. Sparks flying there from the front splitter, coming back into the car in fact, and as he makes his way out of the corner, now making his way down towards Ravazza. Well, here it's completely unsighted initially. You've got to go through memory here as you come down the hill through turn number 13, and then onto the brakes immediately. As soon as you straighten the car, onto the brakes, it's 150 meters downhill from apex, and going out of Ravazza 1 into Ravazza 2, dab the brakes once again, drop it a second, now full throttle all the way. And well, it may not have been the perfect lap to begin with, but for Matthew Croft it's been a better lap to end with, albeit not quite on his pace right now, but we appreciate him giving us an on-board there of what it's like to deliver a lap of the Imola Circuit in a Mercedes AMG GT3. And Matthew Croft right now 18th overall, 10th fastest in the Pro Cars. He's got a bit more work to be done here, but that was really to build up to another lap. As we do say hello there to Maris Hibner, who's saying let's go Glass Tech, and well, our Glass Tech driver Nick Stubb right now still trying to find that time to get closer to Reece Saunders, and Saunders still pushing for more time, but Stubb's got some work to do here with only 4 minutes to go. But where are the big surprises in terms of this qualifying session so far? Who's perhaps not having the best of sessions? Well, one big surprise perhaps, Ville Katonen in his Porsche 992, down in 11th place in the Pro Class, 20th overall. Now, we've got to keep in mind, of course, that this is one of the circuits, it's an oddity, the Imola Circuit, because on paper it is a much more technical circuit than others, but there are multiple ways of approaching it. You've got a whole host of chicanes and also bends, whereby the Porsche will go quick, but the problem it has is on the straights. It's got great low gear acceleration, but as you start to get towards the top end speeds of these cars, particularly down the start for this straight, as you do see here, as Katone does improve there, jumps up to 13th place for a brief moment as Chris Jennings then dethrones him back down to 14th on a 41.280, but Jennings on a 41.239. The problem the Porsche drivers do have around here is the fact they have to think of either prioritising corner speed, which is what the Porsche is known for, or they sacrifice the rear wing to go for straight line speed, and therefore that's where they're going to be potentially vulnerable. This is also other circuits, as you will see in the FIA World Endurance Championship on a yearly basis, when it is raced across a combination, of course, of what is GTP category cars and also GT3s, as well as ones where, because it's such a stop-start style of racing, actually being in the car that's very quick on corner exit can keep you safe just about for the cars that are quicker on the straights, and vice versa. So Chris Jennings in his Ford Mustang, his strength will be that nobody's going to be able to catch him on the straights in the run to the next corner, but that relies on him getting a half-decent exit out of every corner to not be beaten to the next braking zone, and that's going to be the challenge for him. As meanwhile, Benedictus Sinkevicius will currently 7th fastest in his Lamborghini. Can he go a little bit higher here as he crosses the timeline? And the answer is going to be yes. Yes, he's up to 4th place there onto the second row of the grid. He'll be joining his sister team driver Hayden Miller there, who's going to start 3rd at this rate. So Sigovis is finding a bit more time, but right now definitely very close between them all, and he squeezed himself in there. And right now, to think that the top 6 are separated by less than a 10th here, it's the closest qualifying session of the season in terms of number of drives separated by a 10th at the very top. We've never seen it this close for some time. But meanwhile, other surprises down there. Danny Phillips. And, well, the man, of course, who had plenty of fun at Bathurst. We absolutely delivered an incredible result in the second race of the day. Well, number 29th place driver at the moment, the 191 car. Well, he's definitely finding himself in 11th for the elite class. This is not the way he's wanting to go. But this McLaren is a little bit of a difficult car around here, given the fact that McLaren is known to go very well through direction changes at medium speeds. But the problem the McLaren has is, whilst it's very good with direction change, the one thing it doesn't enjoy is high curbs. And therefore, you do have a lot of high curbs here through those chicanes where you've got the quick fire direction changes. So whereas a lot of cars can take those curbs to a degree, the McLaren will struggle by comparison. Curbs such as that coming out of Ravazza 2, for example, absolutely fine. But it's when you go through Tamburello, for example, that is where the challenge will come with regards to taking those curbs too high. We do say hello to Izzy Pop there, who's saying good evening and go out shoot, and good evening to you, Izzy. I hope you're doing well. And we also do say hello there to none other than the father, of course, and none other than what is William Humphrey there. That's Elwood Blues. And, well, good to have you with us as always, good sir. Well, right now, only a minute left to go in this qualifying session. Schubert Cardozo as well. He's not quite on the form as we've previously seen he can be in the pro class here, down in 14th in pro, 23rd overall. But look at the way the field is split right now. The fact that you have got your top 38 there, separated by only 2.3 seconds if that, and in the end you've got a whole host of pros pitching themselves forward of a whole host of elites, and in fact the biggest shock of them all, Lewis Kenyon. We have seen this for the last couple of rounds, but this should not be normal. The elite driver here really struggling once again for Vulcan Motorsports. Where has the pace of the first half of the season gone? The 196 driver just not on the pace right now, down in 20th. Remember, there's only one race today. We've got no partial reverse grids midway through. It means he's got to get it done. It will be 60 minutes of strategy and straight line performance, plus all of that in the quarters. But right now he's giving himself the hardest task in the world if he wants to guarantee he's going to be inside the top 5 of the elite class by the end of the season. Two drivers who have not qualified, Mike Barber and Frank Bujerson. They do not have any qualifying bans on them. They've opted not to qualify, so therefore they're going to start from the back of the grid. But with only 10 seconds and overtime left to go in this qualifying session, there's very little time like the present. And, well, who exactly is present out on the circuit? Milton Tomlinson Dennis is in the pit lane right now. He thinks he's got the job done by 6 thousandths over Tseard Ploeg. Ploeg's coming to the end of his current lap as the checker flag comes on out. We've had a couple of drivers go across the line. Max Wheeler off camera. He's improved to a personal best in his Audi R8 Evo Mark II, albeit still 30th place on a 41.741. But to be fair, we've normally seen him go quicker in the races. He's a very consistent race driver, to be fair, Max Wheeler. He's not a qualifying driver in that Audi. And then again, that Audi is a very particular car. When you drive it aggressively, it's not easy to drive. But Stubb comes across the line. He does not improve from 8th place overall, 2nd in pro. But the good news is he now joins Reece Saunders on the 4th row, so he can go battling with his fellow Ford Mustang rival. You know, other drivers out there. Schubert Cardozo on his final lap. He's had a much better early portion of the lap, particularly in subsector 2. So as the BMW M4 driver heads his way towards the line, what's it going to be here this time around? And the answer is going to be... it's not going to be an improvement. He stays 23rd, 14th in class, but to be fair, keep your eyes out for Schubert because he definitely loves getting into the thick of the fighting early on in these races. Wesley Van Brenz comes through for 9 Pegasus Panther Racing, and he goes 29th there. So he does not improve overall, nor does he in class, and indeed his 41.665 is the lap that does stand the test of time there. But to be fair, we normally see him qualify towards the middle of the pro class, and he's normally quicker in the races as well. But that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody else is on the lap, and well, as things come to a close in this qualifying session, definitely some big surprises. Milton Tomlinson Dennis taking pole position over an elite. Definitely a happy surprise for many. But Tseard Ploeg, the elite champion, will join him on the front row of the grid. Now we Hayden Miller and Benedictus Sinkevicius, the two Vulcan Motorsport drivers that are starting behind him. Indeed, right now MTD is going to feel as though he's being crowded by Vulcan Motorsports cars. Indeed, he's had that a couple of times this season, with William Humphrey started 5th ahead of Ryan Nickerson. And that's your top 6 separated by 85 thousandths, with Reece Saunders, your pro pole sitter, on row number 4, 7th place ahead of Nick Stubb, who starts in 8th. And joining their second of the pro drivers, and you have to go back to 10th place overall for Fotis Katsios, the third of the pros, and 4th in class it will be Chris Jennings with 12th place, who then leads a whole portion of 7 pros all the way down to 19th in the form of Matthew Croft. But with that in mind, and qualifying definitely coming to a quiet end now, as Wesley Van Rens just makes his way to the pit lane there. It's a lovely day here at the Imola Circuit. Lovely sunshine out there, a bit of cloud as well, but we have not got rain anywhere on the forecast. This is pure sunny weather today. And therefore, it means our drivers will all be on dry tyres. We're not expecting anybody to go to wets there unless they've decided to have a bit of a moment of madness in the pit lane, or alternatively, Formula 1 Ferrari strategies, we also refer to that. But indeed, as everyone cools down, Van Rens goes into the pit lane. We do say hello to a few more of you there, including none other than Tom on Track, who says, thanks for another great season. Let's finish on a good one, and 100% good, sir. That's what we do like to see. And do a big thank you to all the drivers who've been on the grid throughout this season, whether it's in Split A or Split B. Of course, you guys and girls are tuning in to Split A at the moment. And it's been so fantastic to see so many of them here. As we say hello to Reece Saunders in the YouTube chat, who says evening and good evening to you, good sir, and well done on pole position. But indeed, as everybody gets themselves comfortable and ready, well, we still got the warm-up period. We've got 5 more minutes before we do go racing here. So this is not a sprint race round. We don't go straight to the grid for race number 1. We do have to wait 5 more minutes here. And it's understandable because, of course, the difference between sprint race and the feature race is there's normally a very different setup you put on the car for the purposes of going for the feature race, the 60-minute race, which we do expect there to be the mandatory pit stop for fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional, although they are done in parallel. So if there's an opportunity to change the tyres and you think it's a good idea, then why not go for it? But normally it only means you can change 1 or 2 tyres at most. But what exactly will the drivers be doing right now? Well, they'll be analysing where exactly they've qualified and understanding if they've set themselves any goals for the purposes of the end of the season and what they're going to need to do to now either capitalise on their qualifying position or alternatively improve upon it. And indeed, it's not always easy, but some drivers, I'll tell you one thing, not all of them love knowing the points that they need to get come the end of the season. Indeed, some coming into the season finale, it gets their head. And I'll put my hand up and say that I have in the past in championship seasons been one of those drivers whereby never tell me the points if you can help it, just tell me where I need to finish. I don't want to think about any maths, I just need to know where I've got to be, and after that everything else is left to history, and some drivers will definitely be that way. Others, meanwhile, there'll be the mathematicians inside their cars. They'll be thinking about exactly how many points they do need to get and where exactly need to finish and where their rivals will be throughout. And then you have those drivers who just decide to put their feet up and decide to take those 5 minutes and just think to themselves, yep, it's been a good session, it's been a good season, let's get the job done in the final race. And of course, target number 1 in terms of where they finish. So there's a whole different set of mentalities out there, and that's the great thing about all these drivers. But of course, number 1 on our grid overall today is none other than the World of Racing STR Esports driver. And to be fair, this man has definitely had some of the worst luck in the elite class for this season. Many of you may remember in Germany 2 weeks ago, of course, was on course to chase Hayden Miller down there in order to be able to take the victory. What exactly went wrong? Well, simply put, suddenly a discontinuity error, and as a result, he lost second and got propelled back to 4th place just when he thought he got everything done correctly in the race and could have really chased down that chance of a win. It was never to be in the end, and well, you could not make up the story. But here today, well, taking pole position by 6 thousandths, if he can get a good run through turns 2, 3 and 4 and clear away from Tseard Ploeg's Acura, he may just be able to control this race. But we have had one big narrative over the course of the season, and it has been, who is the master of the Aston Martin in the elite class? And well, there's 3 names who are chasing that title, Hayden Miller being one of them, William Humphrey being another, and of course Milton Tomlinson Dennis. But the story, of course, being at the very start of the season, William Humphrey, the Aston Martin driver, Hayden Miller, a Corvette driver, and meanwhile Milton Tomlinson Dennis, a Mercedes driver. But both Miller and Tomlinson Dennis have switched the Aston Martin midway through the season because they are allowed a car swap. There's no penalty for swapping your car midway through the season. It does allow drivers to make a fix if they pick the wrong car. Alternatively, if they do feel as though they can split the season in 2, whereby one car is the best suit for a certain portion of the season and you swap it towards the midpoint or towards the end of the season to get the best out of another car, well, of course, there's something to be said about prioritising a single car over the season. There's something to be said about your versatility to drive multiple cars over the season. But it all comes down to a driver. But there's always been that little subplot about the Aston Martins in the elite class. And meanwhile, we have seen a car swap in the form of McLaren to Ferrari for Ryan Nickerson, and how the switch to the Ferrari has worked out for both him and his teammate Fotis Catsius in Pro. Split Strat Esports definitely picked a golden opportunity to do so. But here we see Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports MX making his way on, around and down. And well, and everything has been a bit of a challenging season for him, but it's been a decent qualifying session, and he'll be looking to get right into the thick of the fighting one more time. As some drivers are setting laps, he slides a little bit loose. They're coming out Minerale, but then again now just getting used to the fact he's got a lot more fuel in the front of the car. Remember, the fuel tank in the Porsche 992 at the front of the machine, whereas in all the other GT3s, it's towards the back. And that means the aero balance and the weight distribution of the Porsche is very interesting over race distance. So what essentially happens is, as you go deeper and deeper into the race, the front end of the car gets lighter, and it becomes more rear-driven, the car, which it should. It's rear-engine rear-wheel drive. All the weight is behind the drive by default, but when you are putting the best part of approximately what is around about 70 litres of fuel in the front of the car, well, if you take the basis of converting water from what is liquid volumes into weight, well, 70 litres of water I do believe translates into approximately 70 kilograms of mass. I might be mistaken on that. It's been a long time since I studied physics at university. I'll tell you one thing, you are looking at least 50 kilograms being shoved into the front of that Porsche, and that changes the handling dynamics of it when these GT3 cars are the best part of less than 1.5 metric tons. But as we do see Samuel Clark glances well through, well, Kyle Roy's out there as well, but perhaps not having the qualifying session he wanted in number 24. But good news is, ladies and gentlemen, he won't have to wait to go to the grid anymore, because here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Warm-up is complete. It's time for our final race of the season. It's time for us to dine on round 10 of 10 here in Split A's Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11, brought to you at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari here from SimRacing International. And so, as all of our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the final race of the season. In its pole position for Milton Tomlinson Dennis, a world of racing on STR Esports. He's joined on the front row of the grid by Tseard Ploeg for Vulcan Motorsports 1. Behind them, on row number 2, it's going to be the combination pair of Hayden Miller for Vulcan Motorsports 2, and the sister team driver there, Vulcan Motorsports 1, are Benedictus Sinkevicius, with him and Tseard Ploeg looking to try and move the team forward right at the end of the team's championship. Behind the Lithuanian driver, it'll then be the Briton of William Humphrey for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tip Racing, and Ryan Nickerson will join him on the third rider grid for Split Strat Esports. Reece Saunders, the Pro Pole Sitter 9, only needs 6 points today to take the crown in the Pro class. The Ultra3M Esports driver has made it as easy as possible by starting on pole. Next up, joins Ness, separated by 3 attempts in qualifying, but only separated by a metre or 2 on the line. The Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tip driver then followed up by Thomas Pugh for Axis in Sport X, enjoying one of his best qualifying points of the season. Congratulations to him. And for Tiskatios, the third of your pros, starting in 10th for Split Strat Esports. Outside the top 10 in length, it's Ashley Coutland ahead of Chris Jennings. Jennings having some late improvements there for Axis in Sport X and matching the Relentless Racing trial quite well. Noah Carlson starts in 13th for Beowulf Racing Team, just ahead of his teammate Villa Catone, who improved right at the close. They both did. And then Liam Fraser starts in 15th place for Moonshiners Racing Club. Next, Jared Love, 16th for DC Motorsport, ahead of Adam Baker for LS Racing, with Mark Therese in 18th place for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, ahead of Matthew Croft for Axis in Sports Y and Vulcan Motorsports 2. So Lewis Kenyon continuing to struggle in qualifying and taking 20th place. Outside the top 20, 21st, it's Kyle Wright for Miracle Group M Academy, ahead of Jamie Bardwell for Phoenix Racing Red. Then we do have Schubert Cardoza for Inter Racing Team, starting 23rd, ahead of Mark Hutchison for Altitude3M Esports. Then we have James Howarth, 25th there for Dexterous Motorsports MX, just continuing the theme there of pro drives, because Mark Johnson's alongside for Axis in Sport Y. Danny Phillips, Dexterous Motorsports Car, is an elite driver in amongst the pros, with Mikey Story giving him company there. Story struggling in qualifying. What can he do from 28th in the race? Because the Dexterous Motorsports Car driver then does have Wesley Van Rens for Nine Pegasus Panther Racing, and Max Wheeler for Phoenix Racing Blue, round off the top 30 behind him. And then coming outside the top 30, on row number 16, it's Nathan Anstis for UK Sim Racing Norris, ahead of Alex Fretwell for RLH. And then we have Stephen Donnelly for JSD Racing, struggling in the dry in the Irish Mustang, but looking to move forward there on row 17, ahead of Matthew Jordan for Gassed Up Motorsports. It's David Hutchison at 35th for Axis in Sport X, ahead of Ross Young for Dexterous Motorsports MX, with Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports MX, his teammate, just behind 37th, ahead of Joe Sparrow, and the JSD Racing driver then being followed up by none other than the non-qualifiers of Mike Barber for Great Mass Motorsport and Frank Buyuson for DNR Esports. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your 40-car grid for the season finale. They're all set ready to go. We're all set ready to go as well. The formation lap is almost at an end, and it's over to Milton Tomlinson Dennis to take us to the grid for the final 60 minutes of racing here in Season 11 for Split A. And it's lights out, and away we go. 60 minutes begins to tick away as MTD leads them away down towards turn number 2. But as they do, you can see the field already spanning out here as they all look for opportunities. Ploeg there looking to do battle around the outside. Can he beat him on the brakes in the Acura? He's going to try it here as they go all round, but he won't be able to do so. As the field now concertinas together, the pro class getting very tricky. And Jared Love's having a good start there, getting up the inside of Liam Fraser and making sure to carry him off as Villa Catone looks to now try and break away a little bit with Nicholas Carlson, his teammate just in front. As they all head into the braking zone here, we can see Reece Saunders right now trying to make progress. Car off the road there. That's Tseard Ploeg who's gone straight on. He's picked up a yellow flag in towards Villeneuve, but you can see all the field fanning out. Hayden Miller's got ahead, so is Ryan Nickerson. So MTD's had a bit of a slow run. I think there's been a bit of contact between himself and Ploeg. We're to get a replay of that when we can, but definitely right now Tseard Ploeg has gone back as the field makes about the hill. So Hayden Miller is now your leader, with Ryan Nickerson Nickerson, meanwhile, just behind him, and then MTD, and then Sinkevicius under a little bit of pressure here to hold off William Humphrey. Humphrey trying to go round the outside, but runs very wide, and that's going to be Nick Stubb coming through. Where's Reece Saunders? He's dropped back a little bit with Fotis Cassius ahead of him. There you can see them in the picture shot there, and Tseard Ploeg now down to 9th place, but actually couldn't do over the back in 10th. Looking further back, Jamie Bard. Oh, goodness me, there's a bumper loss there. That's Adam Baker going into the back, I believe, of Liam Fraser. It's the Imola Racing car right now losing its front bumper, but carrying on. A bit of drama there. Frank Peterson, unfortunately, not making it to the grid due to a technical issue with the car, as we understand it. But under braking, they all coming to the auto chicane here. Lewis Kenyon trying to go around the outside to inside of Kyle Roy. That's not going to work. Car around there. Smart de Vries going around the field to get out to fan out. And they all do so very brilliantly there, all splitting the seas around him. Well done to everyone for doing so. And Mark de Vries going backwards there, but a few yellow flags being picked up by several cars, I think, for taking evasive action. But meanwhile, they try to burn the slowdown penalties after a very exciting opening lap. Well, right now, Hayden Miller leads the way still ahead of Ryan Nickerson. So, Miller's taking the lead from 3rd place as his starting spot. Ryan Nickerson's come all the way up from 6th to 2nd. MTD, meanwhile, dropping from pole to 3rd. But to be fair, he's still with his shot in the top 2, with Benedictus Sinkevicius holding 4th. And it's Nick Stubb, currently the leader of the pros here, swapping place with William Humphrey. Immediately there, the two teammates working together, designed to swap things up. And right now, William Humphrey going on the chase here. Stubb, meanwhile, knows all he's got to do is beat the pro drives, of which Fotis Cassius is right behind him. Well, do you want him right behind you right now? I think you don't really, because how quick he is in the early stage of the race. But you can get him to burn his tyres in the first 20 to 30 minutes, then you might be safe for the remainder of the distance. Reece Saunders is then behind in 8th place, 3rd of the pros right now. 9, there's no pressure on him other than to get that car to the finish line. With Tseard Ploeg currently in 9th place just behind, and Ashley Cooton in 10th. But right now, the relentless racing driver, he's definitely been a star. He's made his way up into the top 10. And right now, with Thomas Pugh behind him, Pugh's had a bit of a slow start. But Chris Jennings and Nicholas Carlson, they go side by side up the hill in towards Piratella Bend. And well, that's going to be Carlson on the inside. Jennings looking around the outside here. Can he get the door shut? No, he can't there. The Lamborghini's got the better cornering capability. You can see it with its mid-engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain. And that's going to mean Jennings now is on the inside into Aqua Minerale. They go too wide in, but look at the queue they're causing. You don't go too wide into Aqua Minerale unless you're willing to shed speed. They're still going to battle each other here as they make the way over the rise. Brilliant, respectful racing between these two. They're fighting over 4th for the pro class and coming in towards the auto chicane this time around. All right, now Jennings on the inside there, and Carlson's going to back off. He can't continue the fight any further, but what brilliant racing between them. And Jennings gets a really good run out the chicane, and Nicholas Carlson now with Villa Catoni, his teammate there, to act to a little bit of a backstop. But Jared Love and Liam Fraser are queuing up furiously behind there, and Jared Love in particular, we haven't seen too much of him in recent rounds, but DC Motorsport driver from Scotland right now definitely looking to end this season on a high. And there's Ferrari here on home soil for the car. He's hoping to move into the top 5 by the end of this one. But further back there, we've got battles going on. Nathan Anstis and Samuel Clark. Knows what places recently, with Samuel Clark getting ahead into 20th place in the pro class. There's Stephen Donnelly behind, and Donnelly, after a miserable qualifying performance, well, he looked absolutely beastly coming out of the final corner there, out to Ravazza 1, and roared his way on towards what will be now the next lap. You can understand the JSD racing driver right now feeling a bit of an itch to scratch here, which is he wants to pass these Porsches if he can. But here's Anstis here looking for a move on Samuel Clark. He's looking very close as they make the way to the braking zone. The answer is going to be no. Anstis staying in the wheel marks right now of none other than Clark, and therefore hoping he can be pulled on. But Donnelly here, the speed he's carried through the chicane right now, and Anstis I think needs to get a move on with this, because otherwise Donnelly's going to swallow him up very quickly. And the problem is that Donnelly has got Ross Young close behind him, and Young has got some patience, but even his patience is going to wear out at the end of the day as they head in towards the hairpin. Flashing the headlights there for Nathan Anstis. I think he's trying to send a Morse code there to Samuel Clark, which is, I don't want to fight you, just stay on your racing line. But I think Clark is feeling a little bit intimidated as Ross Young goes all sorts of outside there as he makes his way out to the hairpin. And here comes David Hutchinson looking for an opportunity, and Hutchinson in fact switching to the Lamborghini for the season finale, unless I'm mistaken. It's the Access for extra. I'm probably already thinking about season 12 and what car he's going to run there. And perhaps this is going to be a test session, given the fact this is his one car swap for the season being used for the season finale, and that's normally a sign of the fact they're looking ahead to the next season rather than the current one. A bit of his biff to the backside there from Danny Phillips, the McLaren Elite driver for Extra Motorsports car, tapping all the rear end. They'll get away with it this time, but that's how it's going to stand, at least for now. Now, whilst all this has been happening, Villa Catona has dropped down to 8th place in the pro class, down to 16th, and as he makes his way onwards, that's Mark Hutchinson, the other Altitude 3M Esports Ford Mustang. Me on the rear of the pitch has Lewis Kenyon trying to make work of Matthew Croft, or is it Matthew Croft trying to pass him? In fact, that's Matthew Croft trying to get past the Porsche driver, and Croft here going all the way around the outside. He's got better traction out the corner, given the wider exit lights, therefore the Mercedes will now start to inch ahead little by little in the straight line speed stakes. There's the balance of performance for you. The Mercedes just has that slight edge at top end, but as they power the way on down, it's not much in. In fact, Lewis Kenyon on that inside of the shorter run down towards the first braking zone on the next lap. He's going to feel safe here as they go too wide under braking, and in the end, Croft looks down the outside. That's not going to work as Bios Schubert Cardozo comes in like a missile there for Inter-Racing Team. You could see the speed under braking that BMW. He was hoping that Adam Baker wasn't going to be caught up behind Croft there. I think he wanted to go all the way around the outside outside. It didn't work, but look at this Mikey Story looking up the inside of Mark Johnson. Meanwhile, the Exodus Sport wide driver, that's a new livery on the car. We haven't seen that before. I have to speak to him about that later today, ask if that's a new livery for season 12. But out the inside of it goes Mikey Story, not looking at livery, looking at the place instead. Here comes James Howarth looking up the inside as well. The dexterous Motorsports MX driver thinks about poking and probing here, but it's only one dexterous car at a time, that says Mark Johnson, and therefore it doesn't quite work out for Howarth, but he definitely is right now feeling as though there could be a little bit more of a chance later on. Indeed, that's only 6 minutes of this race complete. We've got plenty more time to go as Matthew Jordan battling side by side here with RLH's Alex Fretwell. Fretwell, of course, taking that infamous win in the Pro Class in what was the second race at Bathurst, and was since then hasn't been able to quite replicate it, but definitely right now enjoying battling here with the Ferrari, the number 86. And Matthew Jordan, to be fair, has been a quick driver in his own right, but the fight goes on between these two. And we are starting to see these battles really build up as we've got a change of position here. That is going to be, I believe, Sparrow getting up the inside there. Adair Hutchinson, and indeed the Haribo machine makes quick work there of the Exodus Sport X Lamborghini, and now moving up into 24th place in the Pro Class. But we've been looking all the way down towards the back of the field. Let's come all the way back up to the front of the field as Hayden Miller sits the fastest lap of the race, only literally for a second, because there it's taken over by Benedictus Sinkevicius, and Ryan Nickerson is still there splitting the two Vulcan Motorsports cars. But Fotis Catius, meanwhile, all over the back of Nick Stubb. It is Ferrari, and well, this is going to be the sequel, Ford versus Ferrari, albeit it's not in 1966. It's going to be instead in none other than what will be 2026, so it's only 60 years later. And once they make the way on down here, that's a good enough time to be able to make a sequel, surely. And they roll the way up between the apexes there of Villeneuve, and right now Catios pushing, but I think realising right now that Mustang's not an easy beast to outrun to a corner. He's going to have to really maximise his corner exit, but the problem is he's dealing with Nick Stubb, a driver who, whilst he is driving a power car, he is a very technical driver, Nick Stubb. Of course, we did see it all the way back in season 9 in his Mercedes, where he definitely proved to be one of those drivers that he was able to tame the rabid beast of the Mercedes with its 6.3 litre V8 power plant and make it look a cornering car with the way he drives. He definitely has a very different driver discipline compared to the car he drives, but that means he really is able to bring this Mustang into a different world, and it does confuse mid-engine wheel drive drivers to see a Ford Mustang being driven as a handling car. As he comes down in towards the chicane right now, keeping it nicely back together. That's exactly what he needs to do here to make sure that Catios cannot get close. But of course, with all the action that we've had so far at the start of this race, we need to take a look back at some of the big moments early on. And one of the biggest ones, of course, was what happened to Tseard Ploeg, and also the change of the lead right at the start of the race. And here's a quick replay to explain. So this was the run for Tseard Ploeg as he came out of the Tamburello chicane, looked around the outside of MTD. Was there contact between them? The answer was yes. He turned in and it sent Ploeg on straight. A small tap there, and immediately MTD back it off there. Now I think that might be to settle the car down as much as it was to potentially give some time back. But either way, that lost him at the lead positions. Can we get the onboard by the drivers behind potentially? Here's what it looked like from Hayden Miller's perspective as he made his way out of the corners. The Vulcan Motorsports 2 drivers watching this, and under braking, well, in the end, a bit of a touch between the two. I think they'll be classed as a racing incident, and it was. You could see there, MTD was trying to settle the rear of the car down, and that's what Miller did. He just simply went through the space and said, thank you very much, I'll take it off of both of you this time around. We had this for Matthew Croft a little bit later on. This was Matthew Croft coming in towards the Tosa hairpin on the lead lap, as he did so side by side with Kyle Roy there. He's going to run out quite wide, and in fact, runs so wide that when he takes the grass there, given the fact he actually has to back off in him because Lewis Kenyon isn't going as quick as he wants him to. We had this for Mark De Vries later on. This was at the Alta chicane, where everyone was queuing up together for the braking zone. And with the Corvette driver coming in, Kyle Roy on his inside. There wasn't a tap there. Went way too high over the second apex curve, and the car bouncing around there, and the seas splitting, and everyone doing incredibly well to avoid his stricken car. Albeit, of course, a few drivers picking up slowdown penalties there for the fact they had to take that evasive action. Now, we did have a bit of a difficulty for what was Villa Katonen only moments later, who dropped down the order. And this was Villa Katonen being passed on lap number 4, I do believe, by none other than what was at the time Mark Hutchinson. Hutchinson go for the dummy there, switching to the inside. Lovely move. But this doesn't explain why Katonen fell down the order so aggressively earlier on. That does show you Jamie Bardwell going for an absolute brutal move there, trying to go up the inside. Did he get it done? The answer was yes, he didn't, and he was able to squeeze his way through up the inside. So lovely move being made there. But what sent Katonen down the order in the first place? Well, here was the battle between Jared Love and Villa Katonen. This might give us a bit of an explainer. And this was coming up into the hairpin, so it was Love looking up the inside, Katonen on the outside there, the two rubbed paint, however nothing too vicious between the two of them, and then they made the way up the hill towards Piratella Bend. So this battle carried on all the way out towards turn number 8, or did it? And well, the answer is no, not initially, and Love was a bit far back. He went for the lunge there on the inside, and Katonen went a bit wide, took all the exit curbing, and in the end still held on, and then they made their way down in towards Aquaminerale. And at this point, something tells me that Katonen here was able to hold on. In fact, no, lost the rear of the car. It snapped loose, and that's how he lost all the place in the end. So it was under pressure out of Aquaminerale, and that's how he lost 4 places in the space of one very small slide. And well, then it was all added to woe there, making the way on through the chicane. So that explains the story. And then we've just had this for Schubert Cardozo on lap number 6, whilst we've been looking at replays, and that's his car wide there at the Villeneuve chicane. There's more to that than meets the eye. In fact, we are able to get a bit of a replay of that from earlier on, and this is what it looked like for Schubert Cardozo. And well, he was already in the gravel there, so he was already turned all around. We can't quite get the replay of it until now. Here we surely do have it, and here we go then. This is what happened to Cardozo, battling with Jamie Bardwell perhaps, not 100% certain. Yes, he was. There was 2 wide in front of them as well, and a small tap there from Bardwell by looks of things, and Cardozo went around, and the rest was history to the ground. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racer we come. And as we do, well, the elite leaders are pulled away from the pro leaders right now, but Nick Stubb, Reece Saunders, Fortis Katios together. Katios has been passed quite recently by Saunders, as Saunders has got back ahead of Katios, but understandably, right now, all he needs to do is little by little. In fact, that place change happened on lap number 5, whilst we were in the replay mode. We might get a replay of that later. We will have to wait and see, but for now, at least, we're going to stay with the battling. That's on screen. And Saunders at this point, of course, if he can take the lead and pull away with it, will it be the absolute cherry on top of the cake with regards to taking the Pro Championship by winning the final race of the season. But again, right now, all he needs to do is pick up 6 points, let's remind you. And if he does that, it is all his. Meanwhile, Kyle Roy, a bit further back, he's enjoying a bit of a ding-dong battle with Matthew Croft. 2 very different V8 machines here. One of them made for handling in the form of the Corvette, while the made for outright straight-line performance and a bit of quartering, that being the Mercedes. But of course, the Corvette, quite intriguingly, a car that's been definitely catered by GM Motors towards rookie drivers wherever possible. That's not to say Kyle Roy is a rookie, but if you did catch the recent article about a month and a half ago on YouTube from the F1 World Endurance Championship, where they interviewed some of the members behind the Corvette racing team, you would have heard about the fact they've really made this car to work towards bronze FIA ranked drivers as well as gold and platinum drivers, as well as cars that are made for all skill levels. But the Mercedes, meanwhile, a little bit of a beastly car and not the easiest to get used to by comparison. That's why you normally see pro drivers taking to the Mercedes in real life, as you do on the simulator. But as we do see James Howarth here all over the back of Adam Baker, Mercedes and Mercedes here. Howarth looking up the inside, decides not to go for it in the end, although temptation was definitely there. But I think the angel on one of his shoulders said to him, don't do it, James, it's too early to go for it. But we have seen some 2 wides already for Aquaminerale today, and if they're doing it within the opening 5 minutes of the race, then they could do it within the opening 15 minutes, let alone all 60 minutes of the race. But as these drivers hopped and skipped away between the curves, the man who started on the back of the field, Mike Barber from Kratos Motorsport, he tries to make a move down on Samuel Clark, but Clark goes defensive under braking and says to him, no, Mike, no. And meanwhile, I think Mike Barber's saying yes as he makes way out the corner. Lovely run on down, but of course, this is equal machinery at this point, bar the setup on the car and the driver. So the elite driver here trying to poke his way through, but Clark keeping it at bay as they come down the hill. Does he look for the dive at the inside? The answer is not this time today. He's going to have to wait a little bit longer here. And of course, the 4-litre flat 6 machine, absolutely giving it all. Being car off the road, that is Danny Phillips parked up there. What on earth has happened to the Dexterous Motorsports driver? He's got it around coming out of Ravazza 2. I suspect there that might be touching the exit curve a bit too high and going to the gravel. So we'll get a replay of that when we can. Meanwhile, Clark is into the pit lane. So Samuel Clark's coming in. Dexterous Motorsports definitely not having the happiest of races for some of their drivers. But meanwhile, it's all happy up front here for Hayden Miller for Vulcan Motorsports 2. The Scotsman right now definitely in control of proceedings. And Ryan Nickerson, Benedictus Sinkevicius and MTD ahead of William Humphrey. That is your top 5 all together in a single camera shot, and then you've got a 5-second gap to another, what is 6 cars behind as they all come down the hill. As we do say hello there to Stephen Codby, Channel Mark Johnson. Nick Stubb runs wide at Aquaminerale, and as he brings it back onto the road, well, is this Reece Saunders down to lead? Yes, it is. Can Katios come through? No, he can't. He's going to go too wide under braking into the Alta chicane. Here does Fortis Katios. Oh my good lord, he's going to squeeze his way in. Well, the split straight esports driver, you don't need to tell him twice, and Stubb with that off track has picked up a slowdown as well. He burns it now. Tseard Ploeg on the back here of what is these pro drivers. He's trying to squeeze his way through, but that was absolutely gutsy there from Katios. You could tell it was either going to be him taking second place in the pro class, or they were going to end up in the barrier together. He was not taking no for an answer on that one. Meanwhile, William Humphrey and Sinkevicius side by side here, with Milton Thomas and Dennis being the man who really creates the opportunity for them both to get a slipstream here. And well, in the end, the two Aston Martins do pull together, but it looks like MTD, if anything, had a really poor run out of Ravazza too. And that's why the situation has built up, albeit Humphrey just squeezes in the end ahead of Sinkevicius. But in a different reality, I think there they would have been touching all the way through the Tamburello chicane. Well, albeit so close between them now as we ride aboard with your 188 driver, and the Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver 9. He needs to practically win this race right now if he wants to guarantee himself the best possible opportunity to take the top 5 in the championship, given that he is not going to be on the grid for season 12, as he admitted in an interview a couple of rounds ago, and therefore Benedictus is hoping that he can take his final trophy of the season before he does go on a bit of a break. And to be fair, he's been absolutely brilliant over the last couple of seasons. I think he's earned the right to have a break, but he wants to end his proceedings on a high if he can. But what does he have to now try to outwit these Aston Martins in front of him? Well, this Lamborghini, good in the corners. The downside of the car, of course, being it is very sensitive to tyres, whereby if it starts to overheat the tyres, it'll very quickly come loose on the rear end, and it'll very quickly tell the driver for a lot of excess oversteer. That's the thing he's got to be wary of. And oversteer for Aquaminarale is tantamount to disaster if that happens, because as soon as the rear lets go, you are pushing uphill into a corner that is not heavily cambered, and therefore the rear of the car will just simply slide before you can get the nose on around. Now, unfortunately, in the pit lane, we do have Schubert Cardozo. We also do have Jamie Bardwell in the pit lane. We've got a couple of drivers in the pits at the moment, so things have got a bit wrong for some. That Bardwell's out of this race due to retirement. We haven't quite seen what's happened to him, and Schubert Cardozo is being serviced, I suspect, due to damage after that incident which saw him put to the gravel at the Villeneuve chicane. But meanwhile, our leaders carry on here, and as they do, well, we carry on down the order. Carl Roy and Matthew Croft. We come back to the sequel of their battle, as we do see Villa Kotonen watching on. Kotonen, of course, the man elbowed down the order, as we saw in the replay earlier on, after the smallest of slides coming out at Quadrale, and everyone jumped on him there like a rabid pack of animals in the pro class, because they all want to gain the places whilst they can. One of the things we perhaps not have talked about in the early stage of today's broadcast is that Imola, for all the fact it is a very entertaining circuit, overtaking here from a driver's perspective, it's hard. It's not easy to get side by side with another car. You've really got to min-max every corner exit and also be ready to attack on the straights and dive on the brakes, something not everyone else is comfortable to do. Now, keep in mind, of course, these GT3 machines, they do have ABS or anti-lock braking systems, so therefore you can be aggressive on the brakes, but you never really want to trigger the ABS unless you can help it, because otherwise, every time you touch the ABS, what the ABS does, it reduces the braking force you are applying to the front brakes and the rear brakes to a lesser extent, and therefore it causes the braking zone to extend, but it puts a lot of heat into the front brakes and the front tyres as a result, and that overheating effect becomes multiplicative the longer you do it later on in the race. So suddenly, what will be brakes that are definitely comfortable in the early 15 minutes of the race, well, by the end of the race, they're going to be feeling very hot, and suddenly you're having to cool your brakes down. That's not something you want to do when you're battling for position in the final 10 minutes, when the car's at its light as possible, and you want it to be as aggressive as possible. Matthew Jordan right now as we ride aboard the dashboard here of the 86 Gassed Up Motorsports Ferrari. He's looking to go on to the attack for 14th place in Pro. And Wesley Van Rensen's just a bit up the road, but the first place he's got to task. Here's Alex Fretwell here, the RLH Porsche, definitely going to be the equal of him right now as they make the way up into this braking zone. And again, you can see here in the shorter runs, that's where the Porsche is stronger. The Ferrari is stronger in the mid to long run straight, but in the corner exit, the Porsche is always going to have a little bit of an upper hand given its drivetrain. Comes down to the drivers being able to exploit it. Jordan is staying close still, and Mark Johnson is 4.5 tenths behind as we do look to the rear here of our hero's car. And there you can see Johnson there in a very different liveried car. And I do have to ask Steve if he's still there in UGChat right now. Is that a special livery being run on Mark Johnson's car, or a different livery being run by design? Is that an include of what we could expect to see in season 12? If you can't say, if you are under an NDA, understandably you don't have to say anything, but there'll be a lovely looking car there for Mark Johnson. It does fit with his driver overalls as well. Go down towards turn number 2. Right now, all these drivers staying very much together as Nathan Anston is still glued to the back there of Ross Young. There's not been much change between these two since what has been really the first couple of laps being done. But meanwhile, here comes Matthew Jordan looking up the inside into Villeneuve. Not quite close enough. Thinks about it on Fretwell, but then decides no, that inside line is not going to work. Meanwhile, more woe here for Nick Stubb. A yellow flag being picked up for Benedictus Sigvicius off camera. But meanwhile, that's 2 wide Kodak Equatorale. Here goes Ashley Cooten looking around the outside. The relentless racing driver in the end is bold enough to do it. Gets it done, and Stubb being propelled backwards there to 9th place overall. Now, to be fair to him, he's only losing class positions at this point. He won't be too upset about it. But the thing is, with elites getting between him and the next pro drivers, well, this is, of course, going to change things up with the strategy. And Thomas Pugh is the next man to try and come through. The man who started 9th but fell down the order early on for Access in Sport X, but he has had a considerable race at the moment. He's not gained or lost any places in the elite class, although Ashley Coupland is actually now starting to fly in this race as we're going deeper and deeper into the distance. It seems though he's turned up the pace compared to qualifying. I wonder whether perhaps he's unlocked some time here and he hasn't been able to quite find the reason in qualifying why he was losing so much time, but now he's found the time here in the race. As meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race. It's none other than Milton Thompson Dennis here on a 41.25. An impressive lap that, and well, that's the quickest we've seen for some time now. The rest of the field doing it in the 41.6s at the front of the field, but he decided to go 3.5 tenths faster. So, is he potentially preparing a pit stop early on here? Well, if he is, that's going to be very risky for this man because of the fact he's going to be coming out in such a crowded circuit. The field has not really splintered at the moment, interestingly. Whilst we have got 2 to 5 second gaps between some packs of cars, we're not seeing a hugely pronounced set of gaps appearing, and that is going to make pitting when you're inside the top 10 very complicated here because the Imola pit lane is a very long one. And whilst this circuit does seem long at 3.05 miles, it's not that long in reality compared to the pit lane, which is the entirety of the start-finish straight. So you do 2 plus 2 to equal 4 on that, and what it means is if you pit from the top 10 right now, or even the top 15, you may find yourself right towards the back of the field, and the worst part about it is you may actually find yourself coming out in traffic. But the reverse is true as well. If we look all the way down to likes of Matthew Jordan, Fretwell, and also Johnson, with Jordan being right in the middle here, look at the move. If these guys pit right now, they could actually put themselves a lap down by pitting. You don't want to do that. So the theme here today on strategy is going to be very different from what we've seen all season, which is nobody's going to want to pit until they have to, or until they give up trying to stay with the cars in front, or think the only way they can get through is by going for an undercut, and they've got nothing to lose. So this is going to require a lot of strategic patience from drivers here. The first drivers to pull the trigger on strategy may be the ones who come off the worst of it compared to normally. They may be the ones who come off the best because they get the undercut. But right now, Jordan definitely trying to find a way past Fretwell, looking very good for Piratella to be fair to him. So if I think he's found his strengths, which is those medium speed corners compared to the Porsche, now he's got to be able to apply those strengths and find a way to offset the weaknesses, which is lower performance in the low speed corners, such as Ravazza 1 here. Of course, Ravazza 2 a little bit faster by comparison, but Jordan right now staying close, and that's part and parcel of the game. From his game. Meanwhile, we'll come back to the leaders here from one Ferrari to another. Split Straight Esports is Ryan Nickerson. He's losing Miller a little bit, and in fact, MTD is getting closer here. Oh, that's getting very close there to hairpin. I think Nickerson going a bit deep. I think he might just be starting to feel a bit of a pinch on the tyres. There comes William Humphrey then. The small contact between Thomas and Dennis in the back of Nickerson is going to buy Humphrey all the speed he needs here in terms of advantage in towards the corner. They turn in. Contact between the two. Thomas and Dennis go straight on. William Humphrey was never going to budge, and in the end, he takes third place there. But both drivers right now, they'll have their story there with regards to what exactly happened. Now, I don't think anybody can say they turned into the other, but I get the feeling it was William Humphrey literally trying to give MTD the bare minimum room, and well, I think he will argue he was slightly elbowed off the road there. But the good news for him is he has burnt the off-track penalty that he picked up. He will have picked up an instant point for it, plus also potentially a 4x of the contact, so he has lost a few instant points that are available to him, but he hasn't really lost that much time compared to the cars in front. And well, actually, when you think about it, this might be for the better in falling back this far. He might be able to get a bit closer later on. Now, whilst all this has happened, we have had a bit of a change from other drivers. We have had Benedictus Sinkevicius fall down the order, and we need to understand what exactly happened to him there. Indeed, we've got so much action happening on the road at the moment that we have just spotted the fact that Sinkevicius has fallen backwards considerably and is no longer part of that top 5 group. And here's a quick replay to explain what exactly went wrong for him. So this was Sinkevicius at the time at the back of the group, making his way up in towards Piratella Bend. So something's gone wrong here. Touching the grass on entry, that's not normally a good sign. And the rear right tyre there completely let it go. You could see all the mud being kicked off the tyre before it went around there. That's how far the car was over. So I think just misanticipated how much whip to the corner. He wanted as much whip as possible, but then just took a little bit too much. Getting greedy, but all drivers do that, to be fair. We then also had this with David Hutchison. So the Axis is what X driver in his own Lamborghini a little bit later on an earlier lap. Made his way down into Aquadarale, took a bit of curb, went onto the brakes to turn 10, and the rear left tyre there touching the grass as he tried to turn in, and that pulled the rear round, and it all went backwards for him. And then we had this for Max Wheeler on lap number 12. The Phoenix Racing Blue Audi driver here had already been in an instant, and coming in towards the field of chicane, hit the curb firstly, fired, hit the second. Oh, goodness me, airborne Audi there. And then hitting the sausage curb, but thankfully been able to straight line through, but that will not help the suspension nor its driver. So a big mistake there for Max Wheeler. Got to be careful of that. As meanwhile, we've got to be careful of the fact we don't want to stay too long in replay mode because we've had some intrigue occur. We have had a few pit stops. Jared Love and Liam Fraser have both pulled the trigger on the first pit stops of the day. And in terms of where Jared Love is out of the circuit at the moment and how safe he is, I hear you ask. Well, there is your track map. And what it will show you is he's come out the very back of the field, as has Liam Fraser. So both these drivers right now have actually bought themselves a bit of clear track. This could work out for them, and that's going to give some inspiration to anybody towards the back end of the top 20 and also inside the top 30. They could pit and give themselves clear track, as the leaders, meanwhile, are already crossing the start-finish line now. So that gives you an idea of where strategy could lie, and the fact that further down the order, it might be the time to pit. Well, one driver is going to have to pit shortly, but it's not because he wants to do it for strategy. No, it's because he's picked up a black flag for instant points. It's Danny Phillips. He has got a drive-through penalty for the maxed out the instant points, and that's going to hurt him massively. That's going to put him all the way to the back of the field. He's yet to pit, so therefore 2 visits to the pit lane are only going to feel even more excruciating than 1. But as he now realises that's going to be the consequences of what's happened today. Meanwhile, we come back to Kyle Roy, who this time, well, he's been chasing Matthew Croft, but now he's the one being chased instead, as this is Villa Kotonen behind him. And the number 39 driver here, after being taken down the order, he's trying to recover, but the problem, it would seem, for Villa Kotonen, and this is not to be unfair to him, he's got a car that's good on pace. He hasn't got a good car for racing, however, and what that means is essentially the fact he can qualify very well. We saw that, of course, the fact he qualified in 6th and was 14th overall. But now that he's fallen down a few places and he's got the requirement where he's got to pass drivers, he's got a lot of speed in that Porsche over the lap, but it doesn't have the speed of the parts lap. It needs to make overtakes. That is the weakness he's got, and Kyle Roy right now definitely making sure that he's not going anywhere forward fast. Meanwhile, coming further up in pro order, there we can see Chris Jennings still ahead of Nicholas Carlson after these two enjoyed that brilliant scrap earlier on, where they went too wide through over 2/3 of the lap. Heading onwards, Hutchinson right behind right now, the elite driver keeping the pros honest and saying to essentially, if either of you drops the ball, are we ready to pick up a place? Now we come back to the YouTube chat there, and Stephen Quadman does say that with regards to Bart Johnson's livery, it's a special livery to match his new Ducati motorcycle he's just bought. Congratulations to Mark for that, and well, I do wonder perhaps whether he's now started to see himself as a bit of a Valentino Rossi with regards to riding motorbikes as well. But to be fair, we do know a lot of our drivers here on the simulator are motorcycle fans, if not track day enthusiasts as well, whether it be on 4 wheels or 2. To be fair, it is sim racing, a gateway definitely to motorsport and having plenty of fun out on circuit side. But meanwhile, one driver's having fun at the very front of the field. Hayden Miller here in control at the moment. 7.5 tenths of the gap to Ryan Nickerson at this time, and Nickerson meanwhile just watching on. William Humphrey meanwhile after passing Milton Thomas Dennis for the British driver right now, seeing that Aston Martin behind him is getting very close, and I think Milton Thomas and Dennis right now as we ride aboard the dashboard here of the 192 driver. I think he's got to cool himself down a little bit here. I don't think he's going to do anything malicious, to be fair to him, but you can tell how he's closed that gap up right now. This is definitely becoming one of those slight, could it be rest miss moments, but we do know MTD is one of those drivers who definitely keeps his cool when he can do so, and well, I think by being this close to William Humphrey, the thought process is going to be, can I perhaps beat him on strategy now, given how close I'm getting to him? Well, hold the phone on that fault, because we've got to change of position here. That is Chris Jennings going wide there into a Piratella. Nicholas Carlson and Mark Hutchinson both going inside him there. Jennings looked completely offline. Did he make a mistake at Tosa? Well, there's going to be Hutchinson trying to go around the outside Nicholas Carlson, and Carlson gives him the pro elbow there and says, no way through for you, good sir. And the elite driver at this point is probably thinking to himself, okay, that wasn't warranted. Well, I think Carlson there in the 2 wide. I think he gave as much space as he could, but in the end, 2 wide throughout Caminarale, it requires both drivers there to lose so much space. It is not easy to go 2 wide through there, but Nicholas Carlson very easy runs a bit too wide coming out of Volta, and that's going to see these drivers now make their way side by side down the hill, and Mark Hutchinson at this point, he's going to feel as though this is checkmate here, but you can see there none other than Carlson trying to outbrake him as late as possible, and in the end just squeezed off the road slightly there, and the Beowulf Racing team driver drops back to 13th place overall. Of course, these two are duking out over overall position, not class position, but Carlson was very keen there to keep the elite between himself and his pro rival Jennings, but Jennings right now is clear, and therefore it does mean he can go on the attack versus Carlson, and Mark Hutchinson meanwhile might just be able to start to run away a little bit. But meanwhile, Kyle Roy and Matthew Croft, they swapped places around since the last time we've seen them. Meanwhile, Vela Kotonen has come into the pit lane. Well, I think Kotonen's had an incident somewhere because he's dropped a long way off circuit. And he's coming into the pits now. So what exactly has happened to Villa Kotonen? Well, the good news is, ladies and gents, we can get a replay of that. And here we go, but not before we take a look back to the fight for 3rd overall, with William Humphrey just holding on for now. And in fact, Mark Hutchinson's had a bit of a moment as well. Everything's kicking off at the moment, but we're going to find out what exactly happened to Villa Kotonen. So this was Kotonen chasing after Kyle Roy and Croft as they rolled the way through Tamburello. Took way too much sausage curb there at turn number 3, and those sausages do bite back, unfortunately, in the 39 drive, going up into 2 wheels and then having to get the car regathered and regrouped. But meanwhile, what exactly happened between Nicholas Carlson and Mark Hutchinson? Well, this was part 2 of their battle, and that we just missed, but we're catching up to it now. And Hutchinson went wide there at Villeneuve, so suddenly Carlson went all the way around the outside, or attempted to at least, and he went wide at Tosa by design, and Hutchinson was able to just squeeze back ahead initially, but it wasn't over, because they then made the way up the hill, and at this point, well, for Nicholas Carlson, this is going to be impressive. He goes around the outside at Piratella Bend, and the answer is no, he couldn't. So then what happened, because Mark Hutchinson did lose out 2 places. Well, here's the explanation as to that. And this was going out at Quinarale, and it was Hutchinson going deep through the corner, so only moments later he regrouped, rejoined, but in the end he picked up a slowdown, and Carlson flashed his headlights there to say, I'm taking this off you, and Chris Jennings meanwhile just literally sneaking his way on through as well. So plenty of battles between those 3, they're keeping us entertained, as William Humphrey and MTD still together here, and literally as we left them, no change at the moment, and a bit further back we do see Rhys Saunders, Tseard Ploeg, and Fotis Katios together, albeit Katios ahead of Ploeg, and right now your elite champion just watching this battle from behind and not really getting involved at the moment. I think saving fuel instead in the accurate, and also trying to save some tyre life for later on in the race. But making their way over the crest and down in towards the next braking zone. Definitely very much intrigue here. And right now, Fotis Katios, I wonder if the split track esports drive has perhaps turned to option 2 in terms of this race, which is now start looking after the tyres a bit more, don't push too hard. In fact, we are getting towards the end of the opening stint. We've got a few more pit stops going. Sparrow and Donnelly into the pit lane. The 2 GSD Motorsports machines have come on in from further down the order, but to be fair to them, 30th and 31st, there'll be a good litmus test of exactly where strategy lies for the lower portion of the field. And the leaders will be keen to know that for when they can potentially pit and come clear of a lot of traffic. Matthew Jordan, he's on the back of Alex Fretwell still. They've been like this since pretty much lap number 5. And Mark Johnson's are there behind in the Ducati-inspired livery machine for Axis Sim Sport. But these 3 all together now. Nobody wants to pull the first punch with regards to strategy, but they are thinking about it as Mike Barber continues to try and crusade his way up the hill. He's on the back of Ross Young at the moment. Young having a bit of a poor run out of Aquaminarale. Barber's going to look for the move here in towards the braking zone. And as they go too wide under braking, well, we get the wonderful static camera here, and Mike Barber quickly dispatches there Ross Young, and Young in the end goes too deep, and as a result has to cut the chicane. He will pick up a slowdown penalty for that to give the time back, but to be fair, did it safely, and well, good fault there from Ross Young. If he didn't feel as though he could make the corner, better to do that rather than take it all the way over the apex curve and break the suspension. And Mikey Story and Mark DeVries coming on through as well. Mark DeVries on a recovery drive right now after that early spin, of course. Well, he's got all the work to do, but he's doing a good job of it so far, up to 15th in Pro. He's got another 5 places to go in the class if he wants to recover all the places he's lost since the start. As he comes on down the start-finish straight. Meanwhile, to Carl Roy versus Matthew Croft. Well, they now get side-by-side here in towards Villeneuve. That's Roy going around the outside to the inside there. Lovely move from the Miracle Group M Academy driver. And in the end, that's going to put a smile in his face. But here comes Matthew Croft looking up the inside. Croft says, right, 2 can play at that game. We'll take this off the sides. Throws the Mercedes up the inside there. Roy goes as wide as humanly possible. And that's all about carrying speed. And gets it absolutely nailed there, heading onwards. And Roy does seal the deal for that 6th place in the Pro Class, at least for now. How we have had a change of pro leader. Rhys Saunders has dropped off the lead from Fotis Katios, who goes to the camera shot there. Saunders seems to have lost out. What exactly has happened to him? Well, thankfully a quick replay can explain. This was Saunders making his way out of Piratella Bend down towards Aquaminarale. I get the feeling this is going to be quite a severe moment. He made his way into the corner. Ooh, goodness me, the whole rear of the car just stepping loose there. Went to the grass and carried on sliding all the way. Tapped the brakes very briefly and then lifted off the brakes there. And that's by design. What he did there was by tapping the brakes briefly, he got the car to settle, but he couldn't stop the car from sliding. And then he was counter-steering all the way without the brakes on to get the car to just glide its way off the road. Well, Rhys Saunders there, seeing the rear of that Mustang go, and if it's going like that now, what's it going to be like towards the end of the race going down through Aquaminarale? And that's not good for the championship leader in the Pro Class in terms of how he's feeding in the car. But to be fair, all he's got to do is finish this race inside the points, unless he finishes right at the back of the points paying positions inside that top 30 of the Pro Class. Well, he will be guaranteed to take the Pro win, essentially, with 26 drivers here making it to the grid in the Pro Class today. If he finished at the very back of the Pro Class right now, we believe he would be your champion, unless I'm mistaken. But we will check those points right in. Should that situation come, ladies and gentlemen, And indeed, that is one of the worst case scenarios here, but it could happen. Anything can happen before the checkered flag is reached. That's the wonderful thing about motorsports. But meanwhile, as Nicholas Carlson being passed by Mark Hutchinson coming out of the hairpin there, well, Chris Jennings will now be trying to come back at the Beowulf Racing Team driver, who's still wanting to take a bit of a quandary with Hutchinson. These two are absolutely fighting tooth and nail. You would think they're in the same class the way they raced each other, but to be fair, putting an absolutely brilliant show about it. And meanwhile, Matthew Jordan a bit further back and finds his way on the back of Alex Fretwell once again, but he still has Mark Johnson for close company. And there is Mike Barber closing up quite quickly. Barber is really turning up the pace here now, as meanwhile Mark Johnson, they're taking a sneaky look up the inside of the Piratella. That's not a sneaky look anymore. That's flat in broad daylight there. Matthew Jordan has to give him the space, and coming through that left-hander right now for Jordan. Well, he just takes his place back on the racing line there. Johnson, I think he surprised himself perhaps at how quickly he got to the inside, and in the end backed off there, not wanting to push his luck. But I think he could have gone for it, but in the end decided not to go for it. Matthew Jordan will be grateful for that, because look at the time it's brought them to Fretwell, or Fretwell I should say, not Fretwell. Goodness me, there's an E there, not an A. And as they make the way on around, Alex Fretwell right now in 11th place in Pro. He does have a whole second between himself and Matthew Jordan, whereas previously it was only a couple attempts. But Nicholas Carlson decides to come into the pit lane, I suspect. Whilst he's had a lot of fun battling with Mark Hutchinson, he's also realising that fun is coming at the cost of his race one. So therefore, he's making his way on down. The Swedish driver right now for Beowulf Racing Team pulls up, and well, that's going to be the story of his first stint. Meanwhile, Roy and Croft back at each other once again, coming in towards Tamburello. It's now Matthew Croft up the inside there. Roy tucks back in immediately as we ride on board with the 24. Out is going to be now all about the next braking zone, which will be, of course, the gentle trail brake in towards Villeneuve. He's not going to be able to close enough to make the move, but you can see there the dirty edge upsetting the transfer of the car. And in fact, he understeered a little bit then. Immediately, Roy actually backed off. You notice, when may not be visible because it's behind the time tower, but in the steering wheel, the way he actually cut his steering input slightly to make sure the rear of the Corvette did not swing as he then made his way into the right hand to complete that chicane. He was slightly offline. He realised it very quickly, and that's the one now he's got to adjust, because he's in that dirty air draft on the back of that Mercedes. And whilst these aren't Formula 1 cars, they still have quite a bit of aero on them. And Matthew Croft's Mercedes right now will be projecting a wall of dirty air, which won't be the most pleasant to drive in. When Croft makes small mistakes like that slide cone out of that Minerale, it won't be long before Kyle Roy is thinking about another opportunity to attack. Now into the pit lane has come Joe Sparrow. That is for a black flag. We also do have a yellow flag for Danny Phillips. That's a slow down penalty as Cole Roy, oh goodness me, will get aggressive for the auto chicane, but right now this Corvette starting to look a little bit sketchy on its wheels, as into the pit from the lead of the pro class comes Fortis Katios. So the split straight esports driver has decided he's gone long enough. He doesn't want to go a full 40 minutes. He wants to now cut his race into what will be 2/3 the opening stint and then 1/3 the end of the final lap. But meanwhile, Sinkevicius passing Reece Saunders and Thomas Pugh, keeping them behind him as well. So Sinkevicius right now trying to catch up to Ashley Coutland, who's making headway. As here comes Thomas Pugh looking up the inside of Saunders, and Reece Saunders here, is he going to fight it? Well, I think that Thomas Pugh was hoping that if he showed himself to Saunders, Saunders would simply just back off the throttle, but Reece Saunders right now, well, you cannot take the racer out of the driver as the Altitude Freedom Esports right here. I think he's thinking about, can he beat Fotis Katios on strategy here? Katios has left the pit lane, there he goes, as Mike Barber makes his way through camera shots. That shows you what pit inside the top 10 does. It puts you essentially right to the back end of what will be the effective top 25 when they've all pitted. So therefore, Katios gets a bit of room, as Thomas Pugh in the end will go too wide here into Zach Minerale versus Saunders. Gets the better run of that Piratella, and then Saunders does let it go. So Saunders feels like he's a bit slower there by comparison. So therefore, the smart choice being made, and now Pugh will be grateful for that because he can go hunting after Sinkevicius. Saunders will be grateful because he can tap into a bit of fuel saving here right towards the end of this stint. And it may just give him a little bit more time back in the pit lane. We know how hungry that Ford Mustang is when it comes to fuel. It actually drinks it by the gallon. Meanwhile, the Ferrari a little bit calmer on its fuel usage by comparison. But meanwhile, out of the pit lane comes none other than Mark De Vries. Mikey Story comes back ahead of him then after all their strategies are told and sold. But in terms of where we are on the pit stops, there we show you right now. And it's your top 15 primarily who have yet to pit. Although as soon as I say that, we've got Ryan Nickerson in the pit lane. We've got MTD coming on down pit road. We've got Ashley Coutland as well. They're all coming into the pits now. So therefore, everyone trying to get those pit stops out the way. And well, it's going to be very interesting to see how long they all spend in the pit lane today. Hayden Miller, meanwhile, he still stays out Vulcan Motorsports 2, but he's finding some traffic in front of him now. That's the number 23 in front of him of Samuel Clark. This is going to cost him a lot of time to catch up a car that's going to go a lap down coming through Tosa. If he doesn't clear it by Piratella, he's going to have to wait until the auto chicane to do this. This is not ideal. Remember, blue flags It is the responsibility of the lead lap driver to overtake the car that he wants to put a lap down, and the car that's going a lap down has to drive predictably. So therefore, there's no expectation to just move out the way as if this was Formula 1 blue flags, and that's why right now Hayden Miller wants to get on through, but Samuel Clark is not feeling comfortable right now at Quinarale, so therefore Miller's now going to get the run in towards the auto chicane if he can, but Clark just doing what he's been told. That's what the rulebook says. He's not defending, he's not fighting, he's just holding his racing line, and Miller, understandably, is going to feel as though this is not the way he wants things to go. This could swing things backwards into the hands of Ryan Nickerson, who has pitted. He is the highest placed driver who has stopped. Morton, sometimes some Dennis are right behind him there, and the fuel delta in the pit lane, 2.5 seconds more fuel was put in the car for Ryan Nickerson compared to MTD, and therefore the Aston Martin driver right now definitely saved a lot of fuel in that opening stint. He's turning this race around. He is right now thinking about the end of this race rather than the first stint. After what happened between himself and William Humphrey, he's changed tact, and it's visible for the World Racing STR Esports driver as he makes his way onwards. But now into pit lane is Hayden Miller. He comes on down pit lane, and as he does so, we look to the blimp camera there. William Humphrey just behind him. The two Aston Martins in. Where is Tseard Ploeg? He goes on another lap. He's been fuel saving. Is this going to be the Saxon ring all over again? Is he going to surprise everybody with how long he's able to go? Meanwhile, Ryan Nickerson comes on down the hill. This is the man we need to keep an eye out for, because he might just be able to steal this back from Miller. And what's Ploeg going to be able to do to steal it back from all of them? That's the question, because as Nickerson makes his way on through the final corner, well, right now Miller is still making his way past the second pit stalls here, so he's not too far away from the pit limiter line. In fact, he's quite close right now, and as he comes up to speed, where is Ryan Nickerson? There he is, but Miller has absolutely pulled a huge amount of time on him. William Humphrey is almost ahead of Nickerson, but not quite so. But what about Milton Sumnerson Dennis? Yes, Humphrey is back ahead of his Aston Martin rival. So therefore, no change in the strategic stakes here, although Tomlinson Dennis is going to have the golden chance here to go for this. Oh, he gets it wrong. Coming out to turn number 4, goes a bit too aggressive on corner exit, touches the gravel, it pulls the car sideways, and that might be it. He's got the fresher tyres, at least as that, or the warmed up tyres, probably the better thing to say, with Humphrey, of course, having to reheat his tyres now and also warm up the ones he's changed. As Mike Barber comes into pit lane, as I look at McLaren's here with window, that's going to relegate him much further down the order, but to be fair to Barber, he's done very well. He's going to come out ahead of where he started this race, no doubt about it. But right now, Milton Thompson Dennis here, knowing that might have been the only chance he had to try and make the move on William Humphrey whilst he's vulnerable. Next time, he's definitely not going to be anywhere near as vulnerable, and it will show. Nicholas Carlson has found his way ahead of Matthew Croft and Kyle Roy recently, particularly Matthew Croft, and that's forced Croft and Roy to come back together. But how exactly has he done that? Was that on pit strategy? Well, we'll have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen, but we won't be just yet, because we need to see where our final two stoppers are coming out. Here is elite champion and leader on the road of Tseard Ploeg, but right now Benedictus Sinkovic in behind him. But keep in mind, of course, these drivers were quite a way back behind Hayden Miller, so we are expecting Miller to retake the lead of this race, but it's by how much is he and Ryan Nickerson going to be ahead, and then William Humphrey, Milton Somerson Dennis not too far behind. Will Ploeg fit his way into this top 4 group? Will he become the 5th man in the group, or will he be a lot further back? That is what we're waiting to find out. The car's being serviced. In fact, a quick pit stop there. He leaves the pit lane after 14.12 seconds stationary. Miller goes on through. There goes Nickerson. There also goes Humphrey and Thompson Dennis. They're all passed. What about Ashley Coutland? Coutland's still a way to go. So Ploeg has gained. Sinkovic is on leaving the pit lane as well. He will be clear just about ahead of Ashley Coutland, who is making his way down towards the exit now. There he is with Otis Catchers for close company. So in the end, it is... Oh, hold up a second. That's Milton Tomlinson Dennis around. I don't believe my eyes. Oh, you can't make this up for the 192 drive. Car into the barrier, parked there on the outside of the road. And how exactly does it end up there when you reverse it? I think he's shell-shocked by the way that's played out. And, well, we're going to need to replay that when we can. And we are going to get a replay of it. We've got a couple of replays to bring you, ladies and gentlemen. But MTD right now trying to get the car rolling. But that's going to be a tow to the pit. But before we see what happened to him, here was the battle between Matthew Croft and Nicholas Carlson. So this was with Kyle Roy behind. So Carlson was getting the place back there. He lost out on strategy to Matthew Croft. And up the inside, he went in towards the Tamburello chicane. And in the end, well, Carlson absolutely making it look like clockwork. And that's when Kyle Roy was on the attack. But then the big question is, what exactly has happened to Milton Tomlinson Dennis? And here's the replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. Well, making the way down in towards Tamburello, only moments to go. We saw there, that was William Humphrey looking over side by side with Ryan Nickerson at the full run. And then Tomlinson there's trying to go around the outside and on corner exit. Contact there with William Humphrey. And it's sent Tomlinson Dennis on around. And he's going to be absolutely fuming at that. Those two, they come to blows several times this season. And that is another moment between them. This was what the onboard looked like from William Humphrey. So you see they're trying to find his way around Nickerson. Didn't work. And then on the outside here, he's hit the curb and it's caused the car to understeer. You could see he was trying to correct the steering there, but unfortunately, at least from that camera angle and the other ones we've seen, it seems like it just pushed the car slightly to the right and as a result made that contact there, and at that point he had to carry on. But back to your live pictures we go, and well, Hayden Miller right now, he has been bought an absolutely huge amount of breathing room with everything that's played out. Ryan Nickerson, meanwhile, after that slow previous lap, which was a whole 6/10 slower, second right now. Can he find a way to close up that Aston Martin, or is his chance of a win, a first win of the season, his final race of the season, his first ever Sim Racing League on iRacing, is it all just going to fall that little bit short? Is he going to be the bridesmaid, but never the bride? Well, to be fair, I definitely think he's earned the respects of so many drivers this season, and indeed I think many will see him as a hero on the grid, just for the simple reason how far he's come since the start of the season in the elite class, when he was chasing top 10s initially, and now he's chasing wins, if not podiums. But the split straight esports driver right now, well, this is definitely not looking the way he wants it to go here, but he's got to regroup, and he's got to believe that prancing horses underneath him are going to bring him on through. But as he does so, well, whilst it's all going a bit silent towards the front of the field, there's plenty to talk about towards the back end of the field, because when the mids, we should say at this point, this is not the back end by any means, and it is Alex Fretwell right now who has a long train of cars behind him. In fact, that's such a long train at this point. Let's try and understand who's in it. Well, it's Fretwell who leads it in 20th place for RLH, ahead of Mike Barber, followed by Villa Catona, Mark Johnson, Mikey Story, Nathan Anstis, Cole Roy, and Mark De Vries. And Kyle Roy has fallen a long way down the order. What's happened to Kyle Roy? Well, he's been into the pit lane recently, that's to be expected, but we did not expect him to be falling this far down. Has Roy had multiple visits to the pit lane? I do wonder. We're just going to double check that, and the answer is yes, he has picked up a black flag at some point, and with a drive-through penalty, so that explains it. It's been recent for Kyle Roy. I was going to say, that's not where he should be. He should be battling with Matthew Croft the last time we checked, but he's lost out. Meanwhile, that is going to be Mark Johnson running wide of Villa Catona. Doesn't need to be asked twice to go for a move here out of that Minerali. Coming on through. In fact, that's not going to be Villa Catona, that's Mikey Story, my apologies, but it was a Porsche, and they go onto the brakes here in towards the chicane, and that Story passes Johnson there. Brave move from the Dexterous Motorsports driver, gets it done, and well, now that's going to open up the floodgates here. Nathan Anstis is going to take some confidence that he might be able to poach a move off of him, albeit is it going to work in reality? The answer is no. Coming on down right now, well, they all stay together, and from them, we've had some drama. That's William Humphrey round toes the hairpin. So after the drama between him and Milton Thomas and Dennis, Humphrey's drama is not over yet, because he's gone around there at the hairpin. Has he been aided on that adventure? We're not sure, but the good news is we do have a replay to explain as Ashley Coulton passes him, and here's a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen. So this is William Humphrey making his way out of Villeneuve, absolutely fine, and went onto the brakes for the hairpin. What went wrong? And the answer is nothing visible on entry, just the rear of the car letting go there. I wonder if he's downshifted a bit too quickly, coming down from second to perhaps first gear, and the rear of the car has just come on loose there, where the weight has transferred and the rear wheels have spun up. But William Humphrey making a rare mistake of his own volition. That's dropped him right out of the hunt of a podium spot. But coming from the elite driver, who's definitely had a bit of a difficult moment. Back to him live, where we do see the pro leader just behind there, Fotis Katios, and he's still got Rhys Saunders looming large behind here, so it's not over yet for the split straight esports driver. And to bring home the win, that would definitely see him effectively bring on home what would be a second place in the Pro Championship. He would be runner-up to Saunders. Understandably, it will be a very bittersweet win, this one, because he'll be thinking to himself, what could it have been if it had not gone wrong in race number 2 at Misano, if he had not been involved in that instant turn of 8 on the open lap, showing the motor all the way to the back of the field? Could he, by achieving more points there, perhaps have been in contention today? But we'll never know the answer to that. But what we will know right now is he's doing everything as right as he possibly can. But going back to that long train of cars, Mark De Vries at the back of it, of course, in the sim racing team at Lowlands Corvette. And his game plan at this point really is to play, watch, wait and listen here, because when you've got this many cars together, picking your way through this group, unless you think you've got a pace advantage to the cars in front of you, it's not easy, because every time you fight a car, you naturally will create a delta or a gap between the car you've overtaken and the next car on the road, because fighting costs time. That's the rule of the road. So therefore, everyone right now in the long line, nobody really wants to make a mistake, nobody wants to try and battle. Everyone's just taking their time. Meanwhile, that's a change of position there, almost, as Liam Fraser tries to make a move on James Howarth. These two fighting over 8th place, and both of these Mercedes drivers have come from different backgrounds this race. Howarth, of course, starting in 15th in the class, now moving up to 8th. Liam Fraser, we are starting in 7th, he's dropped to 9th. That's the chop and change between them, and it definitely seems though James Howarth has been enjoying a very happy race. And well, this could be one of his best performances of the season, no doubt about it, but he does normally go well at Imola. We have seen him in the past go quite quick around around here, and all that practice makes perfect as per usual. But of course, he's got his good friend Liam Fraser behind him, and these two, they know each other very well on track and off track. And right now, absolutely pushing each other to limit. The Moonshiners Racing Club driver, and staying close, we ride on board with the 74, and well, looking to go on the attack here in towards the auto chicane. Running his way from right into left here, and well, as he does so much better exit there, he seems more confident on the low speed bends. This is going to give him a chance here as they get ready to come down in towards Ravazza. And where does Howarth go? He goes to the middle of the road, so Fraser's going to look up the inside. He says to him, I'm going for this. He's going to bite the bullet, and coming down there, too wide they enter. Lovely entry battle between the two, but how will it be on exit? And in the end, Fraser does get ahead, but now can he seal the deal here as they drag race the way all the way down towards Tamburello, because of course Howarth now has the tow. Fraser has none. The next car up the road is 2.5 seconds away. That's Matthew Croft. It's too far. So here they go. Now making the way on down towards Tamburello. And Howard's going to be made to look round the outside. Fraser pins himself to the apex of turn 1. In towards turn 2, he's going to need to give himself a lot more room here if he wants to nail this corner. And in the end, the answer is yes, he'll hold that spot. He almost goes a little bit deep there, but it does look as though Liam Fraser may just take that 8th place here before we get to Villeneuve, and he'll be safe as Howard thinks about it, but it's just too far back to try and poke and pro for one last attack. Meanwhile, coming back to Villa Cotonum, he's got Mike Barber for close company in front of him after that brilliant battle we just saw from Fraser and Howard. We might see an even better one here as well. And as they come through turns 2, 3 and 4, no change at least at the moment. You can definitely see Nathan Ansted struggling a little bit. And the UK SimRacing Norris driver right now sees Carl Roy in his mirrors. And well, of course, these two battling each other very closely in the Sunday GT3 Championship for the championship crown. But in the pro class for the Thursday GT3 Championship, which is what you're tuning into here, it's a very different story. Both drivers had a bit of a difficult season in Thursdays. Right now, definitely Nathan Ansted here does not look to be too happy in this Porsche. It does look as though, if anything, he's struggling a little bit for grip on corner exit, whereas Roy's Corvette is looking very much more planted. But meanwhile, speaking of the driver who was planted, chasing down the top 5 in the elite class, and he's down to 7th in the lead, Ashley Koopman here. He's fallen down, he's had a bit of a moment, and what exactly happened to him? Here's a replay. So this was actually Koopman heading down in towards Aqua Minerale back on lap number 29. So this was 2 laps to go. And in the end, just took a little bit too much curb there on entry. And the rear of the car, the rear left tyre touching the grass. We've seen it for several drivers now. And in the end, oh well, you can only go so wide at that corner. As soon as you push too wide, you are going to find out what happens. And that's exactly what's happened there to Ashley Koopman. Just touched the grass and the rear of the car saying no. But meanwhile, back to Rhys Saunders. And right now, 1 second away from Fotis Katios. He is bringing that gap down little by little, but he's got Thomas Pugh close behind. Now, if you are a betting man for Thomas Pugh, what exactly do you do at this point in the 1-2-3? Do you try to get involved in the 2 pros, or do you instead just let them be? Well, I think we all would like to see him let them be, to be fair, but he's got growing pressure of Ashley Koopman trying to recover behind, so therefore he finds himself between a bit of a rock and a hard place. Although I suspect Pugh will be thinking about this. He'll be aware of the fact he's looking at the Pro Championship contenders, and he'll be thinking very much, I'll only get involved if I absolutely have to, as otherwise, of course, if he was to end up ruining one of the races of the 2, well, let's just say he wouldn't be Mr. Popular in the paddock for some time. Not saying he would, to be fair, he's a very fair driver, but that's, of course, what's on your mind. You never want to get involved in a championship battle right at the end when it's not your place to do so necessarily, even though you've got a race of your own. It's a very difficult one to cross over. But speaking of an interesting crossover, we've had Carl Roy get past Nathan Anstis. Anstis has had a bit of an error through the Villeneuve chicane, and it's led to him picking up enough instant points to get a black flag. Carl Roy, meanwhile, has picked up a slowdown for track limit, so both drivers have had a bit of a moment. And Roy right now, he does not burn that slowdown soon. That's going to be upgraded into a black flag. That will be a drive-through penalty in itself, if not a stop and hold. So he's needing to think about that. He's not got long to burn it. They only get about 25 to 30 seconds, which sounds a long time, but he does burn it in the end, coming out of that Minerale. Otherwise, that could be far, far worse. Did we get a feed of what exactly happened? Well, we're not going to. Instead, we're going to come back to the battle for the pro win here. Fotis Katios ahead of Rhys Saunders. And right now, Saunders very close here as they power the way on down. And we ride on board looking down over the nose of the Altitude 3M Esports 92, the front bonnet, of course, and roaring the way up towards turn number 7 right now. All the Britain here knowing if he can take this win, it won't make any difference to how he takes the championship crown. All it will make a difference is in terms of how much icing he has on his proverbial cake. And making his way onwards. Well, the exit speed there of the Ferrari, just too much to handle. You can see that mid-engine rear drive drivetrain really enabling the Ferrari to have more confidence. But Saunders, meanwhile, just taking his time as Nathan Anstis has towed to the pit lane, we believe. He's made his way into the pits and then towed to his pit box. So therefore, his race may be said and done with only 5 minutes left on it. And understandably, the UK Sim Racing team might design to pack up their bags with regards to that car. And the fact that black flag would put them right to the back of the field and out of the hunting for any significant points for this season play, which is, if so, is unfortunate, as we have had a few retirements in this race. A non-starter cause for none other than Frank Beerson, and along the way we've lost Jamie Bardwell, Stuart Cardozo, and also another couple of drivers. But meanwhile, coming back to here, a bit of a poor run out of the auto chicane. Here comes Reece Saunders, dives at the inside. He goes to lead to the pro class here, and right now he gets his elbows out here. They're two wide code for Ravazza, what a Ravazza two. Saunders right there, right now in the forward, getting ahead. But will we see that Ferrari come back here as Thomas Pugh sees his opportunity to get involved as well? Pugh knowing that Ashley Coutland's now only 7.5 tenths behind him. He does not want to wait any longer and rolling the way on down. But it was an absolutely terrible run for the auto chicane for Fotis Katios, and well, that's going to add up here. And Saunders tries to just pull away a little bit, hoping that Thomas Pugh is going to act to the forward in the side of the split straight. Esports number 19, and there's a touch. It sends Katios onwards, goes the gravel there, and actually Coutland comes up through as well. And for Katios, he burns the slowdown penalty. Now, was that contact or not? It looked from that camera angle there might have been the most gentle of touches, but Katios going straight on there. That's going to put him behind the two elite drivers. And now for Reece Saunders, he just needs to go. He needs to get away and not let them get anywhere near him. If he does so, this win to crown off his championship will be there, and he's just got to hold on for another 4 minutes or so plus a final lap. Meanwhile, James Howard into the pit lane, unfortunately due to what I believe is instant point, and therefore it's a drive through, so his race has taken the turn for the worse. But we take a quick look back at what exactly happened there with that battle between Reece Saunders and Fotis Katios. So it was on the exit there of turn number 12, and coming on down there, Katios just not having a good exit at all. So Saunders decided, right, I'm going to go all in for this. And, well, you can see Katios there literally gluing himself to the outside of that Ford Mustang, saying to him, you're going no wider than the width of my car. And then Saunders saying, I only need that amount of width at Ravazza to get the job done. But then the big contention point was their contact between Thomas Pugh and Katios in their run down towards that braking zone, or indeed in towards Tamburello, we should really say. And going through turn one, Pugh, of course, on the inside, using the tyre Saunders, who was gifting it to him. And then into the braking they went. And as they did, I don't think there was contact there. In fact, I think Katios decided in the end he had to carry on straight rather than make the corner. Otherwise, he was worried about hitting the sausage curbs. And I think he might decide to let that one go, knowing he may not be catching up to Saunders at this rate either way. Now, it's not to say he can't do it, but I think in his head, it's not being defeated, but I think he's now thinking to himself, you know what, I might as well settle for second at this point, and it guarantees my second place spot in the Pro Championship. But back to live pictures, 3 minutes left in a race that has continued to give us some absolutely classic racing action here at Imola all the way through. It always does, to be fair, the Ferrari-owned circuit. And as we do see Jared Love staying very close to the back of Nick Stubb, well, they're fighting over the final spot on the Pro Podium. But it looks as though Stubb has got an answer for now. Love has gradually come through, and to be fair to DC Motorsport driver, he's really made a brilliant effort this race after some of the challenging rounds he's had this season. To come through from 8th to 4th, he's really gone under the radar here, and I think it's worked out nicely for the Scotsman, because with this, well, if he can take that podium, he'll be absolutely ecstatic. But even a 4th, this will definitely go down as one of his best performances in a long time. But as he carries on, meanwhile, the Alex Fretwell train continues to exist, albeit has lost a couple of actors from it, most notably, of course, Nathan Anstis, who's lost out. Meanwhile, we can see that Villa Catone is still trying to find a way through, and, well, this is the battle for 11th place in Pro. It is not going anywhere quick for Catone. And indeed, Villa Catone having the most unfortunate race of everybody in the Pro class. It's all gone backwards bit by bit, and he's not had the pace to make the places up. Indeed, he had a car that was good for speed in terms of holding track position, but not always going to go for it then. He's going to prove us wrong, as Alex Fretwell in the end sees it coming, opens up the door and corner exit. And with Villa Catone, I think he'd had enough at that point as we look back from the rear of the Beowulf Racing Team 39. And, well, to be fair, it may only be for 11th in the Pro class, but every place is valuable. But is there going to be a return move from Fretwell? He thinks about it. It doesn't quite work out in the end. He has to fall back, and Villa Catone finally makes his way on past the RLH Porsche. But how long has it taken him? The best part of 25 minutes he's been patient. That goes to show you how skilled a driver he is and the class he exhibits when he's able to be that patient for so long, and in the end make such a slick move like that. And Fretwell, to be fair, had to give him the space to work with, but both drivers enjoying that battle, no doubt about it. but with a minute to go. Here is Hayden Miller, and right now, will he squeeze in another lap before all is said and done? Maybe, maybe not. We haven't quite seen out of a commentary booth whether the white flag has been shown to Miller, so therefore we are keeping one eye on the finish line. Meanwhile, Jared Love a bit closer this time to Nick Stubbs, still trying to go on the attack. In fact, right in the rear there of the Ford Mustang as he comes on through the chicane. That's where the Ferrari is so strong now in the late game. And you know, that Ford Mustang quick on the straights, but I wonder if Stubb has completely worn his tyres down now, and therefore Love just has a bit more tyre life within him and is able to go on the attack, but not the hairy one, not in towards Piratelli. He's too far back. So therefore he's going to have to wait a bit longer. But meanwhile, as our leader comes on down towards Ravazza, I think this race may be over in 35 laps, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't seen any white flags, but for Hayden Miller right now, as he comes through the last couple of quarters, well, what a day it's been for him. Going from third to first after Tseard Ploeg had a mistake early on, as did Milton Tomlinson Dennis. And as he makes his way towards the timing line, the checker flag awaits. And whilst it hasn't been a perfect season for Hayden Miller, he's going to end it on a perfect result. Here's your winner here today at Imola, with Ryan Nickerson in the end being second place once again, not able to take victory, but knowing he'll end his season on a good result. Had a bit Benedictus Sinkevicius, who rounds off the podium ahead of his teammate Tseard Ploeg. William Humphrey will come through fifth, but meanwhile, his wait for a crown finally ends for Rhys Saunders. He finally becomes a sim racing champion here in the pro class of season 11. Get in there, Rhys, you've done it, as he crosses the line for Altitude Rim Esports. He takes that sixth place ahead of Thomas Pugh, with Ashley Coutland, Fotis Katios and Jared Love completing the top 10. And for Fotis Katios, he's thrown everything at this and to come on through for his second place in the pro class. He will be a runner-up in pro this season. Jared Love taking third in the end behind him, and in the end finding his way past Nick Stubb right at the end. We're not quite sure how that's happened. We will get you a replay. We've still got a few more drives to come through, ladies and gentlemen. Let's follow them all the way home. And, well, we do see Alex Fretwell coming to line at the head of the long train. Vesey Van Rens will be 18th just up the road from him. But meanwhile, Alex Fretwell comes along. He will take 19th place there, 11th in pro. What an effort from him ahead of Mike Barber, who in the end will be ahead of Mikey Story and Mark DeVries. Villa Katonen, where Black Flag had to come into the pits right at the end, so that's put him back behind the train. He cleared, but his result will go all the way down because of a time penalty. And then we have got James Howarth coming through very shortly, taking 16th place there in the pro class, just ahead of what will be David Hutchison, who will be 7 seconds behind. But Howarth comes on through in the end, won't be promoted ahead of Villa Katonen. His time penalty has been calculated for, and David Hutchison in the end in a Lamborghini. There definitely has been an interesting pick today. Has it worked out? Perhaps not so, but still, he's gambled and had some fun out there. That's definitely so. But as he comes on down, indeed, all the drives cool him down. Well, let's get a quick look at how exactly things change between Love and Stubb right at the end at the finish. And here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen, before we do go to your provisional results. And, well, as we did see Jared Love getting closer and closer, and then he was close coming out of Alta on the final lap, and looking up the inside, oh, he went all in there. Stubb gave him the bare minimum room if he wanted it, and in the end, Jared Love said, I'll take that, thank you very much. And I wonder there if Stubb in reality perhaps thought he should have closed the door a bit sooner and a bit firmer, because in the end, Jared Love snuck up the inside. Fair racing between the two of them, and while Stubb did have the overspeed in the run to line, he didn't have a long enough run, and the DC Motorsport driver just beated him by what was about a fifth of a car there. So Jared Love onto the podium. What a brilliant end to their race. Third in pro, 10th overall for Jared Love, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live circuit side pictures. And as all the drivers cool them down, well, for Hayden Miller, it is the perfect way to end this season on a season that's been definitely very rough. Meanwhile, your elite champion of Tseard Ploeg, enjoying the fact he didn't need to win today. He was already champion, but he's having a good time out there. And Rhys Saunders, meanwhile, well, ladies and gentlemen, as Izzy Pop says, congratulations, Rhys, totally deserved. And well, I'll put my hand up and say, ladies and gentlemen, as Rhys said, I think it is emotional state of trying to do donuts. Completely biffs the car into the pit wall, and I think he's trying to figure out how to do donuts right now. I think all sense and logic has gone out of his brain, because he's finally done something he has been waiting the best part of at least half a decade to achieve. And I can tell you what, it's actually choking me up right now to see this sort of man, because yes, he's had his moments, to be fair. I remember in his days racing as part of Team Year One, where he definitely had a reputation of being a driver that was very interesting with elbows out racing. But here today, after what's been several years, Rhys Saunders finally becomes a champion, and he's done it the hard way this season as he toes the pits. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it leaves us all in bits, as let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And well, ladies and gentlemen, an epic 60 minutes to finish off the season here at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari. No doubt about it. For Split A in round 10 of 10 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship. Goodness me, I'm losing my words here. Let me calm down for a second. And the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11. And as we can see, Hayden Miller taking a victory today. A season-ending win, which will definitely guarantee him taking what will be the runner-up spot in the Elite Championship for Vulcan Motorsports 2 by 5.6 seconds in the end over Ryan Nickerson, who with that result, well, it'll be very close. But I do believe he is guaranteed to be in the top 5 on taking home a trophy in the elite class, but whether he takes the third place spot or not, that's still to be decided. Because of the fact William Humphrey finishing down in 5th place for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, it could be very close between the two of them. But between the pair of them on the road, Benedictus Sinkevicius of Vulcan Motorsports 1 and Tseard Ploeg, his teammate just behind, and in the end, well, the two definitely guaranteeing a huge haul of points to end their team's championship on a high. In 6th place then behind William Humphrey, and it was none other than your pro winner, Reece Saunders for Altitude Frame Esports. All he needed to do today was finish in the pro class well inside the top 25 and he would be a-okay, but in the end he made sure to take victory and therefore that first crown in his career comes his way. Then it was Thomas Pugh in 7th place there for Axis and Spot X, capitalising on the battle between Saunders and Katios at the end to make sure he was clear of Ashley Coupland, who took 8th there for Relentless Racing, and Fotis Katios 9th in the end, 2nd in the pro class. But to be fair to the Split Track Esports driver, well, he definitely did a lot of the hard work today, and well, he will be bittersweet about this result because he'll know now that Misano really was a dent in what could otherwise been a complete David versus Goliath triumph versus Reece Saunders, but it wasn't to be here. But to be fair, he is the deserved run-up in the pro class, subject to any Schuer's inquiries. Jared Love returns to the podium there for DC Motorsport. How long has it been since we've seen him on the podium? An incredible end and just beating Nick Stubb to the line to take 10th. And then Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing's Nick Stubb 11th there, but ending his season well and doing everything as best as he could in his Ford Mustang. Behind the Dutchman, it was 12th place Mark Hutchinson ahead of Chris Jennings, who enjoyed a brilliant set of battles, particularly early on with Nicholas Carlson. Speaking of Carlson, he was 14th just behind for Beowulf Racing Team, and it was only a further 2 attempts to Matthew Croft there for Axis in Sport Y, who definitely was in the thick of the fighting all the way through. Liam Fraser missed out in the top 15, took 16th ahead of James Howarth, who was a lot further down due to the black flag penalty, but he was ahead of Adam Baker there by the tune of 12 seconds. And behind the Ellis Racing Drive, it was Wesley Van Rens, Alex Fretwell and Mike Barber who completed your top 20. Behind the QuakeMass Motorsport Drive, who enjoyed a battle from the back of the field to finish just inside the top 20, well done to him. We saw a 21st come the way for Mikey Story, and the Dexterous Motorsports Quad driver, we do believe will be taking the third place spot in the Pro Championship. That will be confirmed, but definitely not the end of the season he wanted with results today, added to his results from Misano. Behind the Dexterous Motorsports Drive was none other than SimRacing Team Lowlands' Mark DeVries, who did well to recover, given his early spin, and then Mark Johnson 23rd ahead of James Howarth, with David Hutchinson and Villa Katonen just a bit further behind him. For Katonen, it was a miserable end to the day with that black flag spoiling his chances of a top 20 finish, but he still was the lead lap finisher right at the back end. And then we did have a lap down for Kyle Roy, as we did for Max Wheeler, Danny Phillips and Matthew Jordan. And we also did see difficulties along the way for Ross Young and Lewis Kenyon. And it was also at 5 laps down the end with a late retirement for Nathan Anstis, who we do say hello to in the YouTube chat there. And we also did see retirements for Milton Tomlinson Dennis after his altercation with William Humphrey coming out of the Tamburello chicane, and also for Stephen Donnelly, although we didn't quite catch that one. And there was also retirements earlier on for Samuel Clark, Joe Sparrow, Schubert Cardozo, Jamie Bardwell, and sadly a non-start for DNR Esports' Frank Buyson with a technical issue with the car. But to the class positions we go, because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we can see, Hayden Miller for Vulcan Motorsports 2, your winner in the elite class by 5.6 seconds in the end over Ryan Nickerson. And the Vulcan Motorsports 2 drive just having the combination today of pace and strategy, and the Ferrari driver Nickerson, he definitely had the pace and the strategy to a degree, but towards the end of the race the pace went against him and the Ferrari driver could not quite catch up. Benedictus Sinkevicius was a further 6 seconds behind in the end, but rounded off the podium there for Vulcan Motorsports 1 when it all went wrong for William Humphrey at Tosa Hairpin, and Tseard Ploeg was able to sneak through as well behind his teammate, and in the end William Humphrey had to settle for 5th place. 9 this season has ended on a bit of a dry spell. Thomas Pugh took 6th there ahead of Ashley Coupland with a Relentless Racing try, chasing him furiously towards the end, but it wasn't enough. And then Mark Hutchinson was a further 13 seconds back ahead of Mike Barber, who was your last lead lap finisher for QuakeMass Motorsport. There was a lap down for Max Wheeler, Danny Phillips and Lewis Kenyon, and it was unfortunately a premature retirement for Milton Tomlinson Dennis for World of Racing with STR Esports. Then to the pro class we come, last but by no means least, and here we can see Reece Saunders for Altitude Frame Esports, your winner by 9 attempts over Fotis Katios for Split Track Esports, and indeed the battle between the two of them at the very end, a brilliant battle, and it really has encapsulated the theme of the season. Katios has been incredible. He's been daring, he has had the qualities of a champion, but Rhys Saunders has been here, and every step of the way, he's just been that one step ahead. Jared Love, meanwhile, may not have been a championship contender, but ends the season on a high on the podium there for DC Motorsport, regaining some of his best from previous seasons, and Nick Stubb was fourth there for Vulcan Fasters by Glasset Racing, hoping to finish on the podium, but still some good points for him and the team in the team's championship, and we'll tell you more about that later on. Chris Jennings, fifth there for Axis Sport X, in the end round off the top five, just ahead of Nicholas Carlson, who missed out by 4 attempts at Lyme, and the Beowulf Racing team trying to join a good fight for 6th and 5th, and in the end holding off 7th place driver Matthew Croft. By Next System Sport YJ, it was Moonshiners Racing Club's Liam Fraser, who took a bit of a lonely 8th place finish at the very end, but he was 11 seconds clear of Adam Baker, and then Wesley Van Rens completed your top 10. 9 places span for a racing driver was 7 seconds clear of best of the rest man Alex Fretwell, who had the long train of cars behind him, and on the RLH train was Mikey Story and Mark De Vries, and there was a sizable gap to Mark Johnson in the Axis Sport Y Aston Martin. James Howarth was 15th ahead of David Hutchison, with Villa Katonen being your last lead lap finisher, and it was Kyle Roy, Matthew Jordan and Ross Young who all finished a lap down, and the same could be said for Nathan Anstis, albeit 5 laps down with that late retirement, and Stephen Donny as well for retirement 9 laps down. And we also saw retirements along the way for Samuel Clark, Joe Sparrow, Schubert Cardozo, Jamie Bardwell, and the non-start, of course, for Frank Buyerson. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results from our final race of the season. And whilst the circuit goes quiet, indeed, it's not quite time to say goodbye just yet, because what's coming up next, of course, is our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. So don't go anywhere, because we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time to get those interviews underway, and you won't want to miss them, we can assure you of that. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Tseard Ploeg gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Fords, for the Ford and the Corvettes, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Ploeger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Inosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bank. Look back for the rear of your second place runner Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think the old Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back and him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes on the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end, as they come down towards turn number 8, well, there, Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews. And you could guess that we're going to be coming to one of our provisional champions straight away. And of course, let's hear from the man who's finally taken his first crown of his sim racing career, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Rhys Saunders. Rhys, you've done it. You have taken the provisional Pro Championship crown, your first sim racing title. It's been years in the making, but here it is, my friend. How does that sound?
It's like a weight's been lifted. It really is. Relief is the overriding emotion. I'm just super buzzing, super grateful. Don't quite know how we got here, but yeah, absolutely over the moon with it. So no, thank you very much. And lost for words.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I could hear it in your voice. You're so happy about it. And I mean, we'll come on to the season as a whole in a minute and how much it means to you. But today, of course, the only thing you needed to do was make sure you took 6 points from today. You could have finished, if my memory serves me correctly, 25th or higher in the pro class, although we did have 27 cars here, so there was theoretically a chance it didn't work out. Were you thinking about that at all today, or were you just sort of, you know what, just get out there, race it like any other race and get the job done?
Absolutely. No, my plan was so I'd not done any practice at all for Imola. I'd done probably a little bit too much practice for Misano, got into my own head, absolutely fluffed it last week, like you wouldn't believe. I thought, you know what, this week, opposite strategy, just relax. I know Imola, I know the Ford. I'm just going to turn up on the night. All I need to do is finish. My plan was, to qualify somewhere near the back and just, pick it up as we go, and it'll be fine. There'll be a couple of DNFs, no dramas. And then started doing practice. Actually found out I'd got pretty reasonable pace. Wasn't too far off Fotis in practice, and then qualified on pole for class. And all of a sudden, all that thought, all that idea of I'll just pootle around at the back and do what I need to do, went out the window. And I was like, no, here to win the title, and here to win the race as well. So the approach changed on the fly.
All fair play. I mean, it was quite visible in the fact that with the pace you were showing in qualifying, and, well, now that we know that you surprised yourself a little bit and you changed tact immediately, so tight in the end to be on pole for pro, and the gap between yourself and, I believe, Nick Stubb only, well, it wasn't even, in fact, it was 3 tenths if my memory serves me correctly in the end. Were you perhaps surprised then at how much of a gap you had versus how tight it was in the race in the early stages?
Yeah, absolutely. I've struggled all season with just getting the car fired up at the very, very start of the race. And Fotis has been an absolute demon. And I knew that from P10, a bit like Ferrari in the F1 at the weekend, I just knew that he'll be right there with me at the start. And he was actually ahead of me coming through the second chicane, which I think is the Villeneuve one. And he was, he fired up really well. Nick was great at the start. And then I realised that I'd probably got a little bit of pace on them. And I was just saving fuel, chilling out, and waiting for the opportunities to come my way.
Well, in the end, having to change tactics again in the race in terms of just waiting for those opportunities to come. I mean, as the race went on, we did see it started to become more and more down between yourself and Fotis for the win. Although, to be fair to Nick Stubb, he was always an actor in the background to a degree after he lost the lead early on. So at the very end, we saw the pit stops coming through. Were you happy with the gap at the end between yourself and Fotis before you went on the attack? Or were you thinking actually I should be closer, or no, actually I should be further back?
I should have been ahead. I had a terrible couple of laps before my in-lap. Had a half-spin in Aqua Minerale, and then, yeah, had a terrible couple of laps. After that, lost my flow, lost my rhythm. Tom Pugh was all over me. Ashley Coupland passed me as well. And I kind of pitted out of desperation of just needing to reset my brain for 30 seconds in the pits and get back out after it. So I was pleasantly surprised by the fact it was only 2 seconds behind him. But I think before I lost all my rhythm and flow, I should have been a couple of seconds in front. I'd saved more fuel than he had.
All fair play. Well, in the end, whilst you made strategy work, a bit of a fluff up towards the very end of your opening stint, definitely costing you time on the in-lap. But then going on the attack throughout the second stint, we saw you gradually close the gap up, and it looks as though, based on what he's mentioned, Mr. Gear Shift and Sonny, that's the only chance you needed.
Yeah, it was a little bit strange, but yeah, we'd come out the chicane and I'd close the gap down to kind of 4 or 5 tenths, and I'd been a little bit better through the Variante Alta all race than he had. He was a little bit stronger in the first sector, and yeah, he was just a little bit offline, and then that just meant that I could attack him, and then I managed to give Ashley Coupland the draft to pull him through the gap as well to get a couple of cars as a buffer between us, and. Yeah, no, that was it. And then once I was in the lead, it was just keeping those elite guys between me and Fotis and just bringing it on home for the win and the title.
Oh, indeed. And obviously, I do have to ask, coming out that final quarter, checker flag awaits you, and it's not just a championship crowd, it's the win and the crowd on top of it as well. What did it feel like just those last couple hundred meters to the line?
I didn't believe I'd done it until coming out of Rivazza. Even on the final lap when it was white flag, I didn't believe I'd done it until I come out there. And then, yeah, just relief. Relief and elation. Not to mess up any potential iconic lines. And then just, yeah, a big old deep breath on the in-lap. I thought I'd do some sick donuts. But unfortunately, I can't remember which way the traction control goes on the Mustang. So I ended up embarrassing myself on that front. But... no, happy, just, yeah, elation, pure elation.
Oh, indeed. Well, I think we can excuse the brain fart there. We did catch it in full glory on camera when you tried to do the donut, so don't worry, you've got that embarrassment etched in for life now. But, joking aside, of course, a brilliant moment, a championship crown well earned. And when you look back over this season, if there's one moment that you feel as though perhaps was the turning point or the highlight beyond securing the crown today, what would it be?
There's a few. I mean, I got very lucky at Virginia. I was having a nightmare there, and Fotis had a connection issue, I think. I gained some points where I probably should have lost a load of points there. Recovering quite well through the field at Daytona after a rough first race was a big moment as well. And yeah, learning a new track environment. So it was just lots of little moments throughout the season. I can't say there was one big defining moment where I thought, oh, this might be on. But yeah, it was good. I either won or Fotis was right there with me, ready to take some points off. I've mentioned him a few times in interview. Him, Mikey, and Phil Katonen have all been absolutely fantastic all season long, and have all kept me very, very honest at various points throughout the season.
Oh, 100%. It really has been a story between several of you in the pro class. And like you say, some of the biggest actors there, Mikey, plus also Villa, and none other than Fotis. But looking ahead now, of course, you finally got that first crown in. Can we expect you back for season 12 in only a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, already signed up. Looking forward to it. They're splitting it slightly differently. I'm sure you've probably covered it on stream. But they're splitting it slightly differently. It's now going to Masters and Superstars. I'm sure it'll be explained to the viewers in due course. But yeah, I'll be in the Masters split for next season. So yeah, only racing on the Thursday, not the Sunday next season. But yeah, looking forward to what will probably be an elite challenge. I don't imagine I'll get away with being pro again.
Well, to be fair, you've been absolutely elite this season in the pro class. And if we do see you in the elite class there, we look forward to seeing you taking on a whole new challenge and see whether you can come out top trumps. But Reese, just as I do get ready to let you go, I have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Too many people to shout out, so apologies if I forget anyone. Thank you to the missus for putting up with this as a silly hobby that I do. Thank you to Altitude 3M for providing the setups, A really awesome looking car. Thank you to Mark Hutchinson in particular, because he's been my mind manager, my mind guru throughout the season. And then thank you to yourself for the fantastic broadcasts. And also James and the admin team at SRI for putting the championship on too. Super grateful. Thank you very much. Cheers, Paul.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I won't keep you any longer. Enjoy the moment, savour it, celebrate it. You've earned this feeling. You deserve it. I can see so many people in the YouTube chat saying congratulations to you as well. You are Provisional Pro Champion for Season 11 of Split A's Thursday GT3 Championship, brought to you by SimRacing International. And, well, enjoy it, my friend, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. So hearing that, ladies and gentlemen, from Reese Saunders, and so happy with it all in the end. And, well, you can understand why, as he's absolutely celebrating, absolutely over the moon, and the man has proven to be today just one step ahead of the competition. No doubt about it. And we're looking ahead now to what will be next season. Expecting to go into the elite class, but to be fair, I suspect he will rise to change there. And the most important thing, of course, getting that title under him. Not just his first title at SimRacing International, but his first title in his sim racing career. And well, the magic has finally made its way to him. And now he can rest, he can take a deep breath and think, right, I've got one, now where is the next one? And that's always that's the one thing, of course, when the floodgates open, will they all come pouring in? Well, we'll be hoping so, and we will see him on the grid for Season 12. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. Don't go anywhere, because that's only interview number 1. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stay in Pro for just that little bit longer. But next up, we're coming to a man today who's definitely ended this season on a high. And I do believe that he's part of the team's champions. Here is Nick Stubb, who joins me now in the interview room. Nick, good evening to you. And whilst you may not be Pro Champion today, you've taken an absolutely solid result with 4th in the class. And I do believe that you and the team from Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing are team's champions.
Good evening, Paul. Yes, indeed, we are team's champions, which I'm very, very proud of. I think overall I had an incredible, terrible season. I think I missed the first race and then DNF the second race. And then after the third race, everyone in chat said, oh, we were first in the team's championship. So I was like, oh, I'll shift my focus and focus on the team and just push, but not push like extreme, just to gather the points, and it worked out, and I'm so proud of the team.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And I mean, like you say, it's been a difficult season on a personal level for yourself. When we look back to previous seasons where, of course, you've had so much control over proceedings, in the Premier class, of course, becoming a champion there in your Mercedes, but here today at the Imola Circuit, 2nd place in qualifying, 3/10 off of the pole time set in class by Reese Saunders, but arguably your best qualifying points of the season.
It was. But first of all, can we get Humphrey in after you're done to get the team together in the split?
Oh, of course, we definitely can. In fact, you know what? Let's bring him on in now, if you're okay with that.
Oh, of course.
Well, we just got the patch through to William Humphrey. Apologies, Will, for not asking you in time, but your teammate Nick was so eager to bring you in here for the fact that you are part of the team's champion. So
Nick, yes.
We thought we'd bring you in. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm all right, thank you. Pretty happy after tonight. How about you?
All good, all good. You sound very happy for a man who is now part of the Provisional team's champions. Of course, both of you had an exciting day today. And for yourself, in the elite class, you've had as much excitement as I think Nick has had.
Yeah, it was good fun. Had a few clashes with other drivers. Had a really silly spin, but all that we came into this race was for the team's championship, and we've come away with that. So I'm very, very happy with the result.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'll happily interview both of you together. If we come back to yourself, Nick, talking about qualifying, 2nd in the class, and of course, Reese Saunders 3/10 quicker than yourself. Were you surprised or very happy with the qualifying performance?
I was not surprised because in practice I copied the time that I did in practice in the actual qualifying, so I was really happy about that. And I saw Reese up there and I was like, okay, yeah, just get a top 3 I guess, and then just get the points and be champions of the teams. But I had a great start, like a great start. And Reese, I don't know what he did, but he had such a bad start. And by the end of lap 1, I was P4 overall, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I talked to Will and I said to him, just tell me when you have to get by, because the position on track for you is way more important than the position that I have. So I was like, okay, I'll do it in the first corner, and we played it out pretty well. And yeah, then I fucked it up really.
Well, it may have gone forwards and then backwards a little bit for yourself, Nick. We'll come on to the decline later on. Meanwhile, for yourself, Will, of course, extremely close in qualifying. A 10th. Sorry, let me correct myself. 85,000 separated the top 5. You were right in the thick of that. I mean, that's got to be the tightest qualifying session we've seen all season. But what's that like from your perspective? You think yourself, oh, this is a good lap on pole. Actually, no, you're not. You're 5th and you're only out by 85,000.
It's great because you get on pole and you're like, oh, that's a good lap. I'll be surprised if a lot of people beat that. And you see one person beat that and you're like, yeah, you know what, fair enough. And you see another one and you see another one and you're like, geez, how far am I off? Then you look at the times and you go, oh, that's amazing. It was honestly a very, very fun quality session. It was awesome to see how close the top 5 were and how that translated into the race as well, because we were just talking about it in the chat before. We were all basically nose to tail, just following each other for 13, 15 laps, and it was just showed how close it is now, and hopefully that translates to the next season as well.
Oh, without a doubt,
That'd
it
be
being
nice.
that close between you. And sorry to cut in there, of course, when you're running that close, I wanted to ask, how much of an emphasis then becomes strategy and fuel saving versus actually you want to try and poke and probe and make a move?
For the most part, it's very much I took my advantages there, like you're seeing on stream now, when the moments arise. But a lot of it for me was fuel saving, and especially in the place that I was in at the back of the pack, I could fuel save quite a lot and then still catch up. But I definitely took my moments, like I did with Benedictus, but it was very much knowing when to take those moments and not losing too much time, whilst also doing fuel saving, which actually helped quite a bit in the end.
I see. And whilst it was then relatively more about the fuel saving on your end, coming back to yourself, Nick, now, after a brilliant start, things started to go a bit backwards for yourself. I mean, from your perspective, what did go wrong?
Well, I don't really have an explanation for it. I just lost pace. Just pace in general. I was trying to do a bit of fuel saving, as we discussed earlier, that I only needed to save 0.1 of a liter per lap to get the extra lap in, which is not a lot. And especially in the Mustang, when you can just lift off and hold on your speed. But I don't know what happened. I maybe started overdrive and overthink everything, but yeah, I just lost pace. Made a few mistakes, and then I lost all of a sudden I lost like 6 places or so.
Oh, fair play. Well, losing place in the end, things didn't go quite right. And we did see towards the very late stages yourself end up battling with none other than what was Jared Love. I mean, did he surprise you how quickly he caught up to you at the end?
Really, because he got up to me like until 1.4 seconds quite quickly, and I think he stayed at 1.4 seconds for like 5 laps, and I was like, okay, he won't like close this gap quick enough before the end. But then I made like 1 or 2 mistakes or a slow exit on the chicane like twice in a row, and then he was up my ass. And he did surprise me with the move in the penultimate corner, and he apologized for that because it was out of his like capability of doing, but he just missed his braking point, and I was like, okay, fair point. But I had to watch out for him, especially on that exit, because I was on 16x, so I was on the verge of getting a drive-through, and I knew I would get disqualification if I picked up the drive-through.
Oh, I see. Well, a very tricky moment there for you to navigate, but in the end, just lost out a little bit, and it was a drag race to the line. I mean, you're pretty willing the Ford Mustang on that point, going, come on, get to the finish line. It's only about 10 meters away.
I didn't even flash. Usually I would have flashed, especially because I knew we ended up P1, provisional P1 in the teams championship, but it was so tight. I was like, okay, I can't flash it. Just focus, wheel straight, and just floor it until the finish line. But yeah, it was not enough, unfortunately.
Well, it may not be enough for a podium, but still a very valiant drive to fourth place in class. Now, coming back to yourself, Will, of course, after all the fuel saving strategy had played out, you found yourself battling with an old rival. And the two of you, whenever you're both together on circuit, it normally ends up with a bit of contact at some point. Not saying it's your fault, I should point out. Yourself and Milton Thomas and Dennis. What happened there from your perspective?
So after the pits, I went for a move on Rick. What's his name? Ryan, even, sorry. And it was an audacious move. I knew that was the case. Knew that would be the case. So it kept me quite far on the outside, and Milton took advantage on the outside. I made a mistake and lost the car a little bit, especially because the tyres were basically chocolate at that point, and hit him. I'll take full responsibility for that one. That is on me. But the other incidents I had with him were just him just. Yeah, he wasn't too happy about it, but he was trying to go for a move that wasn't there. He kept on trying to go around the outside of me and then turning in as if I wasn't there, or he didn't have the overlap to then have the corner for himself. But that incident after the pits, I'll take on hand, and I'll learn from that and move on.
Well, that's absolutely fair. I mean, to be fair to both of you, and I think I can fairly say this, and this is not to offend either of you, you're both very intense racers. You both want it as much. And when you're both as even as you are to each other, it's incredible to see it. Of course, the one thing for spectators, it's fantastic, but it does lead to those moments like you say. But it's great that you can talk about the incident, particularly at Tamburello, and put your hand up to it. And we did think you'd hit that inside curve a bit high and it pushed the car slightly to the right. So really appreciate your insights on that. But at the end of the race, of course, in a 5th place, I mean, you spent the whole race battling for a top 5. You took a top 5. Perhaps not the perfect end to the season for yourself. It does mean that you're our 3rd place finisher, but most importantly, a guarantee of the team's championship.
Yeah, I'll take P5 for this race. As I said, it was mostly we came to the race hoping for the team's championship, so aiming for the team's championship, which we got. Would have liked a P3, but my silly lazy spin sort of threw that out the window. But overall, I'm so happy that we got the team's championship, and to do with Stubby and both the Yans is honestly incredible, and I'm hoping we can do something like that next season. And yeah, I hope to carry this momentum next season, and then with other series that we're doing as well.
Oh, fantastic. In terms of your plans next, gentlemen, if I come to yourself first, Nick, can we expect you to be back on the grid for season 12?
Oh, definitely. I signed up for the Masters, so I'll be in top split again, which is very nice. I think in Pro, well, the middle class now, and I already know that I'm definitely going back to the Mercedes next season, so I'll be back in the Star.
All fair play. And for yourself, Will, when you're saying about next plans, does that mean we'll see you on Thursdays as well?
Yes, it does. I don't know if we'll be in the same team, me and Stubby, because we have quite a stacked grid for Glass Deck next season, but
Yeah, we do.
yeah, we have like 3 teams now, I think. But I will be there. I'll be in Masters, and in terms of the car, I honestly don't know yet.
Fair play for both of you. We look forward to seeing you guys on the grid for season 12. Whether you're in the same team or a separate team, either way, it's going to be exciting to see you both giving it another season a good go. But just as we do get ready to let you both go, starting with yourself, Will, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to?
Yeah. Of course, all the SRI team, the admin team, and everything for setting up this event. Family, my dad, my mum, my stepmum, my nana, my nandad, and my amazing girlfriend as well. Currently asleep, but we'll bypass that, and yourself, Paul, for doing all the commentaries for the races, and and my teammates. Sorry, can't forget my teammates. Stubby as well for being in the VC with me all the time, and then coping with me shouting at random lap cars, and then also to the Yans for helping us get this championship.
Pleasure, my friend.
Oh, brilliant. And of course, Nick, coming to yourself, is there anyone you'd like to give a thank you to?
Well, the whole admin team, of course, the whole Glass Tech crew member, everyone, all the teammates that are included in this season, my uncle, all the people that are watching for me and cheering for me, it's just amazing. especially this race, Matt Jones, he helped a lot doing engineering and getting all the points sorted which we needed for the championship. So massive shout out to him.
Oh, fantastic. Well, guys, it's been an absolute blast, and it's good to hear how much support you both have on an individual level and also as a team collective level. You are our provisional teams champions for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing for this season. Congratulations. Save it a great end to the season, and we look forward to seeing you both back on the grid for Season 12 in only a few weeks' time.
Cheers.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, a bit of an impromptu from a single interview of Nick Stubb into a double interview with him and William Humphrey. But to be fair to both of them, well, they're over the moon, and I absolutely love the fact that Nick immediately wanted Will to be brought into the interview room in order to be able to celebrate together the accomplishments of the pair and indeed also their teammate. Indeed, let's not forget about the fact they have been a team consisting of 4 drivers and the form of Jan Osterberg and also Jan Nagy as well, both in Split B. Unfortunately not available to join us in the interview for this one, but able to hear from the Split A drivers there of Nick Stubb and William Humphrey across our Pro and Elite classes. But interesting stories from both of them with regards to how the day went. Nick Stubb pleasantly surprising himself with regards to his performance in qualifying and then able to move forward in the race, albeit moving backwards. And we do apologise for the slightly foul language you did use there. And I'm sure you understand, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that in the heat of racing, indeed, the emotions are very real and they stay with you all the way to the end. And just feeling as the race went on, things gradually fell apart. And that's why he fell all the way from the lead back down to 4th place, just missing out on what was 3rd place in the Pro Class to Jared Love at the line. But the flip side of the coin being, he knew what he needed to do in order to help make sure the team took the team championship crown. William Humphrey, on the other hand, a bit of a different story. Surprised, but absolutely loved the fact the top 5 was separated in qualifying overall and in elite by only 85 thousandths. And over the race distance, the first stint was all about fuel saving. It did get a little bit rough between himself and Milton Summerson Dennis, and talking about the incident in particular that did end up throwing a curveball to the race of the World of Racing STR Esports driver, but Humphrey was able to hold on, and in the end talking out the drop off of the apex curb at turn number 4 at Tambrello and putting his hand up to that one, although talking about the fact as well, definitely a bit of tempers between the two of them, but that is racing between them. Indeed, you could definitely liken them in a way to what would be the likes, if my memory serves me correctly, or we say Jason Plato and none other than Matt Neal from the BTCC era. Alternatively, you could even put them in the same category as such as Juan Pablo Montoya and none other than would be Michael Schumacher, albeit slightly different personalities than those drivers, but you get the picture. That's how fierce the rivalry has been, and we'll brilliant battle in between them. But most importantly for the team's champions, and we'll see them on the grid for Season 12, albeit perhaps not as part of the same team, given how stacked the teams will be. But either way, it'll be great to see the 2 stars shining, and whichever team they go to, they're going to be shining very bright. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews tonight, and therefore let's move on to our next interview. We've kept them quite busily waiting. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our 3rd interview of the evening. It's going to be with none other than our elite winner today, as he joins me now in the interview room, and we're our provisional elite runner-up. It is Hayden Miller. Hayden, good evening to you, and well, what an end to the season it's been to yourself. It has been one of those ones that you talked about earlier on the season, where when your mind's been in the right place, you've been able to deliver. When it's not been in the right place, things have fallen apart. But here today, mine was in the right place by the looks of things, and you've taken victory to end it all.
Yeah, tonight was couldn't have went any better. I was getting excited seeing William and Milton having battles with Ryan, because coming into the race, it was me and Will were split by only 1 point. So I just needed to finish ahead of him. Kind of bottled quali multiple times. I think the pole time was a mid 40.5. If I hooked up my lap time towards the end, I would have been in 40.3s. But yeah, it was just about keeping my head down, not getting in the incident between Milton and Tseard on the first lap. So that was P1 straight away. So yeah, just keeping my head down, fuel saving, and realistically just managing the gap between me and Ryan, keeping that at a solid second, trying to pull away from William. But yeah, it's really good on the fuel, lap times consistently. Yeah, couldn't have went better for me.
Well, it went very well for you. And talking about qualifying, of course, a very interesting qualifying session. We heard William Humphrey's perspective only moments ago. He loved this. I don't know about your fault. Top 5, you qualified third. You're right in the middle of it. 85,000 separating the top 5. It is the closest top 5 we've seen all season by a huge margin. What was it like for you?
Hectic, because the final 20 minutes, I'd be going into some laps, I'd be 700ths up, that would have been pole, then I'd lose it through one corner. But it was that fine of margin between pole and P5. It is so difficult. There's these races in qualifying, these qualifying sessions, they come around very rarely, and when they do, it is the most intense adrenaline rush sessions ever, because the track was getting hotter towards the end of the session. But oh my God, you'd normally in any other race, I'd set a good lap time, notice no one's improving, fine. I just sit in the pit and have a cool down before the warm up, go get a drink, do something. But because we were that close, I was constantly going out chasing that lap time, because I knew even if someone improved by 3 thousandths, that was a position for me lost. And at Imola, you don't want to start on the outside, because you'll just get absolutely mugged going into the first chicane. So yeah, qualifying was very, very hectic.
A very hectic qualifying session, and then in the race itself, I mean, it looked as hectic when we went green flag. Of course, you started on the second row. By the time you got to the toaster hairpin, you were leading the race.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. William got a really bad start behind me. I was saying to Tseard that I was on his inside just to be sure, just so he doesn't turn in. I backed off. We did the team things. We tried to not kill each other, especially. He wasn't too fussed, obviously. He was here to help me and Benedictus and Lewis. Obviously, he's pulled a blinder and secured the championship the week before, so he was just there for team morale and helping. But as soon as I seen Milton and Tseard skewer off in different directions, like Moses in the Red Sea, I was like, I'm not complaining. I'll take this P1. I just need to get my head down and not kill myself, not bin it.
Oh, indeed. Now, of course, over the whole race distance, what we did also get to see was the fact that you were able to open up a bit of a gap, but there was always that constant threat of Ryan Nickerson and his Ferrari, a man who, I hate to put you on the spot here, you have denied that man his chance of a win this season, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but he was pushing you every step of the way. Were you able to take a breather when he was that close?
To be honest with you, it didn't faze me. Again, Season 10 was very hectic for me, so I've gotten used to this constant pressure. Most of it, I believe, was from Andy Dawson in Season 10. So him constantly a second back, I already know what to do. I know he's not fuel saving. I'm fuel saving my butt off. So yeah, it's just about keeping that gap, keeping cool, don't get any 1Xs. Keeping consistent, so it doesn't really faze me, people trying to push me on. If anything, that motivates me to get faster.
Oh, fair play. I mean, you withstood the pressure absolutely brilliant. You did look ice cold with the way you were approaching it, and after the pit stops had played out, we did see you come back out with a gap of around 3 seconds, and that gap would just gradually be maintained until the very end. I mean, it looked as though this was a race that, once you carved yourself a gap, it was all wrapped up, or were you constantly thinking, I can't afford to make a mistake?
Yeah, I was constantly saying, don't get any more 1Xs, don't get a drive-through, don't make mistakes. I'll be real with you, before the pit stops, I thought it was all over, because Samuel Clark, I know in the rules it's blue flags, you have to get past them, and once you're alongside, they shouldn't fight you. But it's kind of the thing of, if you've got the elite leader fighting for P2 in the championship by 1 point directly behind you, I think it would be of sense to let them by, especially if the guy you're battling for position behind you has just dropped 4 seconds from you because he's let the leader by. There's nothing wrong with him keeping to his line, but it did lose me about 1 second, 2 seconds to William, so that put me on pressure. But yeah, after I got past the pit stops and all the drama, yeah, it was just smooth sailing from there. And especially when William had this incident and spun it, I knew literally all I had to do was 5 more laps, just keep it on the track, don't get any 1Xs, and yeah, P2 right there.
Indeed, and second place in the championship coming your way, and completely appreciate what you were saying about Clark and just that slight hold up, all that very risky situation just before the pit stops. But coming on to the more positive side, perhaps, with the second in the championship, just beating William Humphrey to it, and in the end, Ryan Nickerson being able to dethrone him from third place. It's been one of those seasons whereby you've almost matched the number of wins that Tseard Ploeg was able to take. He took 4 to your 3, and your wins coming in what was the feature races primarily. So all in all, perhaps a decent season, and now one to gear up for season 12.
Thoughts on season 12 already. I think I'm already putting testing in different cars, testing different styles. I'm going to be chatting to teammates about setups and all this stuff, the usual. But yeah, it's just about this pre-season is you don't want to, or this break, you don't want to flood yourself with all these new thoughts and things. It's best to just take a week or 2 break, just calm it down, maybe a week, and then you can you can do some laps over there, which in that break which is what I would be doing. But yeah, if you come out of a 10-week long season and where you've been flat out testing and stuff like this and then racing, you need that break, you need that mental reset, otherwise you're going to keep on tripping up on your mistakes that you're doing last season. You need to take this break in preparation for it. But yeah, it's all in about a week or so, week and a half, it'll be all flat out testing cars, setups, new tracks, new lines, learning tracks like St. Petersburg and all that stuff. So yeah, big preparation.
Indeed, the preparation never quite stops, but we look forward to seeing what you can bring to the table in season 12. But just before I do let you go, Hayden, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, just a huge shout out to Vulcan Motorsports, the entire team, just always pushing each other on since season 9 when I joined them. Yeah, just pushing them on, keeping everyone focused. We've all had our down times and arguments, but yeah, at the end of the day, we're all just a bunch of mates doing sim racing, and yeah, we love it. But also just a big shout out to Sam Derbyshire, always been there, always keeping us calm, making us have laughs. But yeah, great guy to be with.
Well, Hayden, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join me for an interview to wrap up your season, and what a way you've completed your season. Runner up in the elite class behind your teammate from the sister team of none other than Tseard Ploeg. A 1-2 for Vulcan Motorsports at the end, and well, on a personal level yourself, a win to see your season through. We look forward to seeing you back on the grid for season 12, and whether you can go all the way to the crown next time around. But until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of the evening and savour that second place finish.
Thank you very much. I will. See you.
So here and there from Hayden Miller, ladies and gentlemen, for Vulcan Motorsports 2, and really reflected there on his championship and also the results of today, and talking about the fact very happy his target was that second place behind what was his teammate, and then able to make it happen. He knew the points were all there in mind, the team were keeping a good eye on what was going on between him and also his main rival of William Humphrey, and talking out there the fact that whilst there was that constant threat from Ryan Nickerson, and it wasn't meant impersonally, just the fact he didn't feel it anymore because he was so used to the battling with Andy Dawson in season 10, and that has really shown. It's shown through the fact that he's really steeled himself to the mental pressure of these situations right now. But as we can see in the pictures there for Hayden Miller, he was always within reach perhaps of Ryan Nickerson, but he was never going to be caught, and the same for William Humphrey. And that in the end is why he's your provisional elite runner-up. Now the preparation will gradually start to go in for season 12. I do wonder what you be bringing to the table when we do raise the curtain in only 3 or so weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've still got a few more interviews on the line. If you don't mind waiting, we've got plenty of surprises for you. We'll be back very shortly for another interview. And so, ladies and gentlemen, from one elite driver who won today, we come to an elite driver who sadly has not quite taken a win this season, but he was so close to it in the end. Good afternoon to you, Ryan, and well, I hate to say it, You're definitely the bridesmaid this season, not the bride. But what a race to end your season on. Second place, third in the Elite Championship as well as a result of it. You've got to be happy.
I honestly did not think I was going to pull off a third. I knew it was going to be close going into this. I thought I had to win, and then William had to get below fourth. But yeah, I'm like riding high on emotions right now. So it's just crazy.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I think crazy is the best way to describe it. And speaking of crazy, in qualifying, 6th in the elite class, you're a bit further back compared to the top 5 that were so close together. But from the outset, you were pushing so hard to be right at the front of the field. What do you think you were missing in qualifying?
I just could not get all 3 sectors lined up for a lap. One lap, it would be one sector really good, and then I understeer just a tiny bit, and then I just lose a decent amount of time. So I had the 10th, I just couldn't pull it through. So that's definitely where I was missing most of it.
Or fair play. Not quite able to join the dots up in qualifying, but we definitely saw you join the dots up in the race. Early on, of course, coming quite quickly forward, and in the end, into second place, chasing after Hayden Miller for that whole first stint. I mean, you were pushing hard to chase after him. It just seemed as though he was always a little bit too far away.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Nürburgring race. He just has more pace than I do. But I just wanted to keep that gap because I was keeping a tab in my mind about track limits. I knew it was going to be a challenge this week, just because of how easy it is just to steer wide, and then so I just wanted to keep that gap, keep him pressured enough to where he might make a mistake, and then luckily actually I think it was William and Milton behind were battling, so there's a little bit of gap, but for the most part that race was just constant, same lap time, same gaps, and just head down.
Well, indeed. I mean, we could see the consistency and how, in the end, you were trying to put that pressure on. You couldn't quite make it happen, even after the pit stops. But on the upside, of course, what you did get to see was the fact you did return to the race in second, and your 2 rivals behind of William Humphrey and Milton Thompson-Dennis had a bit of an altercation. So I suspect towards the very end of the race, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, this is quite easy. I'll take the second place, even though it's not the win, but could there be a chance of third now in the championship?
Yeah, I was asking one of my teammates. I was like, "Yo, could you do this for me real quick? I just need to see if I have enough of the points." Because after William spun it into one of the hairpins, and I must have miscalculated or something, because he said I would have been really close, but just a little bit behind. So I'm absolutely, I don't know, ecstatic to come out in front. I definitely was not expecting it.
Oh, indeed. You've surprised us all. But to be fair, when we look back at your season, you have been one of those drivers who has gone from quite a humble start to the season and has grown so much. What do you feel has been perhaps the thing you've learned that's enabled you to go from a driver who's been chasing top 10s in Elite to chasing wins?
Definitely the car. Not gonna lie, it was definitely the car. It sounds like one of those things, but definitely changing to the Ferrari was probably the best decision we could have made. But it was the efficiency in the way I practice for these events. In the past, I would do huge chunks. And towards the end now, I do maybe 10 to 15 laps. And then I just take in the morning, and then the evening, I do the exact same thing.
I see. Well, the tweak to practice has definitely helped, and also the switch away from the McLaren to the Ferrari. We have noticed a difference across the split straight esports team. Yourself and Fotis both really come alive with the Ferrari. And of course, ending the season on this high, I do have to ask, what's next for yourself? Are you planning to be back on the grid for season 12?
Sadly, not. I just need a break. I feel like this week especially was just an indication that I just could not, I was barely wanting to practice. It was yeah, it's just that feeling of overworked. But I'm gonna stick to just endurance racing right now, having fun. Trying to get my I rating up. And then hopefully we'll be back for the following season. Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. And I'll tell you one thing, I don't think anybody can begrudge you for wanting a rest to take a season's break, Ryan. You've earned it. And indeed, I think you can hold your head up high when you rest and look back and perhaps get yourself ready for season 13. But with that in mind, just as I do get ready to let you go, I mean, on the Teams Championship frontier as well, I do believe it's looking quite good for yourself and Fotis today. And in the end, you guys have come out fourth just behind. In fact, let's just double check that to make sure. Hold up a second. Third in the championship. There we go. How's that for an achievement? Third in elite, third in teams.
Oh man, I was in the call with like everyone, and I feel so bad. I was like celebrating. I was like, yes, because I knew it was gonna be close again with Tseard and Benedictus, because we've been kind of back and forth in the second half. But I knew I had a feeling that we were gonna pull it off from our double seconds. So yeah, definitely an amazing feeling.
Oh, 100%. A brilliant feeling to end the season on. And as we do get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to?
Oh, yeah, I got Fotis. Thank you for being an amazing teammate. You know, we both, none of us, or sorry, let me rephrase that. We couldn't be here without each other. You know, the teams, it takes two drivers, not just one. And so huge congratulations to him for vice champion and all the work he's put in. Thank you to Jordan. Again, skipping his work to help spot for us. Huge thank you to him. Matt sitting in again from school, and I'd like to thank you actually for all the work that you do and all the work that you put into this. And yeah.
Well, Ryan, we have to say a big thank you to you as well, and the whole Split Track Esports team. You guys have been really some of the underdog stars of this season, to see both yourself and Fotis fighting every week and putting together some of the most outrageous overtakes that we have seen. Long may it continue when we do see you come back to grid. Enjoy the break. Enjoy savouring the third place in Elite, plus also the Teams Championship. And when we do see you back on the grid, we look forward to every moment of it.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. So hearing that from Ryan Nickerson, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear how happy and how much it means to him with the result today. Second place in the end, and saying in qualifying he couldn't quite put all the constituent parts of the lap together to get the time that could have seen him inside that top five. But to be fair to him, he didn't need to in the end, because everything that played out in the opening couple of laps opened up the doorway for him to go chasing after Hayden Miller. But openly admitting, much like at the Nürburgring, the difference was that Miller just had answers. He had the pace to keep Nickerson at bay, and that win was just within arm's reach, but he could never grasp it. But then what he could grasp was third in the Elite Championship, although surprising himself, knowing it was going to be close, but find out right at the end he had done it with William Humphrey having that late spin, and also adding to, of course, the fact that Split Straight Esports, with their double second places today in class, well, guaranteeing themselves and third place in the Teams Championship. And the reason we say they have punched so far above their weight, keep in mind, of course, 4 drivers can make up a team. A 2-driver team, the best 2 points of each team from each round go forward. But when you've only got 2 drivers, both of you have got to be perfect every round. You will feel the pain even more every time one of you gets it wrong. And in fact, as well, we've seen both drivers really come through in their respective classes. The season's gone on. It has been an underdog tale, and one of the stories of Season 11 to see Split Track Esports come third in that championship and push the leaders every step of the way. But speaking of the step of the way, ladies and gentlemen, as Ryan Nickerson definitely earns that break as he takes steps away from racing for a bit, we're going to step away because we've got a couple more interviews still to go. It's a bumper edition, ladies and gentlemen, so bear with us. We've got 1 or 2 more on the line. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our penultimate interview of the season, joining me now in the interview room is a driver who I've been very much wanting to catch up with because he's had one of his best results of the season here today. It's none other than Tseard Love from DC Motorsport. Tseard, good evening to you. Thank you for waiting. How do you feel knowing that today, it's been a rough season, but you've ended it with a podium in the Pro Class, albeit by only about a metre at the finish line?
Yeah, it's been a pretty woeful season. Thought it started really well up until the last lap at Sachsenring, and then missed a couple, crashed a couple, got crashed out, crashed myself out, and missed. Yeah, so glad to finish it on somewhat of a high. happy with the podium. I think it's the highest I've ever had with SRI in the sort of 2 seasons I've done here. So onwards to next season. Hopefully that's a sign of where I should be, what pace I have got, and we'll see how we get on next season.
Oh, 100%. And off the back of that, of course, we won't draw too much on the difficulties of this season. Let's talk more about the positives of today. Qualifying, 8th in class, 16th overall. I mean, we talk about the elite class having an incredible top 5 in qualifying today, but from what was 11th, in fact, no, 10th all the way down to 20th, so many pro drivers together, and you found yourself towards the second half of that group. What's it like in qualifying? You must have been thinking to yourself, if I find the 10th, I might be at the front of this field, but if I don't find it, I'm at the back of it.
Yeah, exactly that. I just, a story of my sort of driving, to be fair, I can never seem to get a good lap in qualifying. Practice, I hit a 40.7, and I think I was 4th overall. That's including the elites. And then I was, 6-7 tenths off that in my qualifying time. Obviously, the track was getting a wee bit warmer and whatnot, but yeah, I was hoping to get sort of a low 41. But yeah, so it could have easily been 5, 6, 7 places higher up, and maybe should have, but done what I could. With a relatively reasonable starting position, being middle of the pack.
Now, to be fair, whilst in qualifying, you can always go for that best lap, but in the end, it's a case of you've got to get it done in the race. In the race, what we saw is perhaps a much more subdued race from yourself, where you stayed out of trouble for the most part. Everybody else seemed to be finding the trouble instead, at least for the first stint. Is that what it felt like to you?
Yeah, so just first couple of laps, stayed out of trouble. There was a bit of a gap forming between the top 10, and then I was in a gaggle of cars behind that. I was behind, it was Chris Jennings and Nicholas Carlson that were fighting reasonably hard.
Yes.
They were slowing each other down a lot. I obviously was right behind them, and it's quite a rough track for off tracks, and I wasn't wanting to get any unnecessary 4Xs and whatnot. So I ended up gambling, going for a massive, massive undercut, and it paid in my favour. I came out. By the time they pitted, I was 7 or 8 seconds ahead of them. And obviously was close enough to Nick Stubb to eventually catch up with him and get the move on the last couple of corners.
Well, worked out very nicely in terms of getting the jump and strategy, and then coming a bit more into the battle between yourself and Nick Stubb in the closing stages. I mean, like you say, went for the move at the end. I mean, if you were going to wait until the very end to go for the most daring move of your season, you definitely went for it. You just dived up the inside on the poor man.
Yeah, I think the gap was maybe bigger in my head than what it actually was. So went for it. He half closed it off, and then my car just wouldn't turn. I think I sort of almost cut his nose off, which wasn't really the cleanest overtake I've ever had.
But flip side of the coin, of course, being the fact we did get to see a brilliant drag race to line. I bet at that point, all worries about how you'd done the overtake went out the window. It was just sort of, come on, where's the finish line? I need it to get closer.
Yeah, I thought he had me, to be fair. I think last time we ran Imola last season, I got the same jump on someone else. So luckily I've been on the good end of it both times of the last lap.
Well, a very solid end to your day, and indeed a good way to send off what has been a challenging season. So looking ahead perhaps to season 12 or your future plans, what's up next for yourself?
Yeah, just season 12. Figure out which car I'm going to run. I think I'm in the Superstars with a new team that I've been doing endurance racing with. The DC boys aren't returning next season. I think they're trying Porsche Cup and a couple of different types of cars. So I've got new teammates, new people to try and learn off of, talk to and discuss from, and yeah, figure out what car I want and then go from there.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it'll be exciting to see you back on the grid once again, giving it your all in season 12. But just before we do let you go, Jared, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the stream? Yeah,
shout out to everyone in SRI, runs the league, yourself, the commentary, and then my wife. My wee boy's just woken up now, so I'm certainly not sleeping anyway. So I'm going to try and help out with that, but appreciate your time.
Oh, and likewise, Jared, we better leave you to your little one, but congratulations on the podium today, and thank you for joining me in the interview room.
Cheers, Paul. Have a good night. See you later.
You too. So hearing there from Jared Love, ladies and gentlemen, and with the DC Motorsport driver, talking about firstly the frustrations of the season. It all went well until the last couple of laps at the Saxon Ring, and after that, well, definitely a bit of a difficult season, but ending it on a high and staying out of trouble today, and in the end only finding trouble when he needed to try and take that third place. But what a good battle between him and Nick Stubb right to the finish line on the final lap, and Jared Love taking that place on the podium. And well, if he can maintain that going into season 12 with a whole new team and perhaps a whole new car, could he potentially be one of our pro contenders? We'll have to find out then, because there's a long way to go before we do get to the grid for season 12, and there's a lot to tell you about with regards to that when we do give you an update on it at the end of this broadcast. But speaking of things to go, we've got one more interview to go, ladies and gentlemen, and the person who's waiting for us has been very patient, so let's not keep them waiting any longer. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our very last interview of the day. He's been very patient, and we're very grateful to it. It's none other than James Howarth. Good evening to you, James. What a day you've had. The black flag aside, you've had a season finale full of fighting and full of excitement. I mean, a classic end to the season, perhaps.
Yeah, in a way, I'm sort of pleased with it, but in another way, I'm not, because I know I can do a lot better. But it is what it is, and congratulations to Reese and the other podiums. Well deserved. A tough season throughout, so it's a bit of hit and miss for my end.
Indeed, like you say, a bit of a hit and miss season, but here today, I mean, qualifying 25th overall, 15th in class, perhaps a bit of a miss in the qualifying session.
Yeah, I felt pretty stable, really quite quick. Obviously, some people are more aliens than me, so I could only work with what I've got. So either way, I'm pretty pleased with the race. Yeah, I got a bit fortunate with a few incidents. Sorry, but at the very end, I lost it on turn 2. So it is what it is.
Oh, indeed, always some moments that could have gone better, but one thing that was entertaining, of course, is the fact that yourself and Liam Fraser found each other out on the circuit, and both your Mercedes in the end doing quite a bit of side-by-side battling.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. He clearly had the run on the final corner. He took one of Jeremy Clarkson's brave pills and just kept it a bit faster than I did on the next couple of laps. But again, I lost it in turn 2. I had a little Mong moment and forgot I was in second, and just put the power down because normally I'm in third for that corner, and the rears went bye-bye.
Unfortunately, that mistake right at the end of that battle, which really brought an end to the battle, let's say. But the flip side of the coin, of course, being that we got to see you pushing as hard as possible, chasing the top 10, and a black flag just really cemented a bit of a difficult end to the day.
Yeah, like I say, it is what it is. That's racing. Lack of concentration can damage you. So I was really kicking myself at the end of the race, but that's racing for you, isn't it?
Oh, indeed, 100%. And when you look back on the season, of course, Dexterous Motorsport Zemex not having perhaps the strongest of seasons, but your sister team, Kwa, runners-up in the team's championship.
Yeah, congratulations to them. They really fought hard, especially in the Discord. Us in the A-split was trying to minimise battling with each other because I knew sometimes I'm faster than Danny and Mikey, but again, at this beginning of the race, I had Mikey alongside me, so I just let him through and followed him, making sure I don't hit him. That's the main thing. And then I found out that Danny had an unfortunate accident in the chicane, and that's pretty much ruined his race.
Indeed, a bit of a difficult end from the perspective of their season in this split, but still runners-up. They'll be pleased with that, no doubt. And looking ahead to next season for yourself now and the team, what are the plans for season 12?
Pretty much try and get teamed up with the most points as per race. We're just trying to maximise points. But official names to teams haven't been brought out yet, but I'm happy with whoever. I enjoy racing in this league, so all is in good fortune.
Fair play. I mean, it wouldn't quite be a grid if it didn't include yourself, James. No doubt about it, and the Dexterous Motorsports guys. But with that in mind, and of course, as we get ready to wrap up, I do have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out on the broadcast?
Well, there's one too many, but we'll start with the usuals. With yourself for an outstanding broadcast week in, week out. I hope there's many more to come from yourself. The SRI admin team, I know they work wonders behind the scenes to put all this league together. The DXT team, my girlfriend Laura, who's always supporting me, and all my golf friends who watch and give a bit of banter in the chat.
Oh, fair play. Well, James, it's so good to hear that you're well supported by those around you. And we absolutely love to see you on the grid week in, week out, giving it your all. Perhaps not the strongest end to your season, but to be fair, season 12 is not too far away. We look forward to seeing you back on the grid there. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, and thank you once again.
Yeah, you too, Paul. Take care.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our Dexterous Motorsport ZMX driver, our final interview of the season, James Howarth. And talking briefly there about the fact that this season definitely has been a bit of a challenging one, particularly when it comes to Dexterous Motorsport ZMX and on a personal level. But the flip side of the coin has been he's enjoyed some good battling, and we saw plenty of that today when he went toe-to-toe with Liam Fraser until a small error with regards to choice of gear on the corner exit sent his Mercedes astray. However, looking ahead to next season now and already thinking with the team about how they're going to shape up the crews for Dexterous Motorsports to maximise their points. But he's looking forward to whoever he gets partnered with within the team and the organisation working hard there. And well, we look forward to seeing him and the rest of the Dexterous Motorsports guys on the grid for season 12, because they're certainly putting up plenty of battles, and that's what the team is known all about. And whilst for ZMX, it was not a team's championship to be remembered, for the Kamal team, they were runners-up, and congratulations to them, and we'll show you all those points and more shortly. But for James, well, Imola today definitely proving to have a bit of fun out there, but also some black flags, and unfortunately the black flags taking over as the race went on. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our bumper edition of interviews for this season finale. We always love to try and get an interview of every driver who puts their time forward at the very end. But let's give you a recap of who we've spoken to. Quite a few drivers here, we should add, and here we go. And so we began our interviews this evening with your Provisional Pro Champion for Altitude Frame Esports, Reese Saunders there. Indeed, taking pole position and victory today. Hadn't put as much practice in as he would have liked, given he over-practiced for Misano. But to be fair, in the end, coming on home with a win. He didn't need it. All he needed was 6 points. But here he's taken 100, and therefore he becomes a champion in style. We then came to a mixture of the Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing's Pro and Elite class drivers of Nick Stubb and William Humphrey to talk about their races and their status as provisional teams champions. Congratulations to them. And then we came to Hayden Miller, your provisional elite runner-up there for Vulcan Motorsports 2, talking about ending this season with a class and overall win, and in the end being able to steer clear of the pressure of Ryan Nickerson and William Humphrey. But we had plenty more interviews after that, and then we did come, of course, none other than Ryan Nickerson, the man who became a second place finisher once again today, but talking about the fact surprised at bringing on home third place in the Elite Championship, and also for Split Straight Esports alongside his teammate Fotis Katius in the Pro class. They becoming the third place finishers in the team's championship as well, and his second place finish today definitely a long part of that story. Then we came to Jared Love for DC Motorsport in the Pro class, talking about his return to the podium and what a frustrating season has been, albeit turning things upside down into a smile right at the end in the drag race to line with Nick Stubb. And then lastly we came to James Howarth from Dexterous Motorsport ZMX just moments ago for the Pro class, talking out there the highs and lows of today, indeed with it the season, but looking forward already to season 12. A huge thank you to all of our interviews today. We've had so many of them, and all our interviews throughout the entirety of the season, and well done to them all on their performances, not just in this round, but over all 10 rounds of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, just before we do wrap up, there's of course the question of the provisional final standings, and here we go, starting with the Elite Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, after 10 rounds, it was already crowned in round number 9 for Tseard Ploeg for Vulcan Motorsports 1 on 742 points. His 4th place today, meaning he is guaranteed to be not teams champion, elite champion, regardless of what happens. But in 2nd, there was the big question mark, and the answer was Hayden Miller, with his win, has taken the runner-up spot there for Vulcan Motorsports 2, ahead of Ryan Nickerson, who has crept in by only 2 points ahead of William Humphrey of his 2nd place finish there, and Humphrey's late spin cost him the chance at being the 3rd place runner-up. Still for the Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech driver, he'll be thinking to himself that it's been a season of some major highs, including 2 wins, something that Nickerson's not had, but still at the same time as well thinking about what he needs to do for next season if he wants to become runner-up, if not the elite champion. Benedictus Sinkevicius did in the end manage to sneak his way into 5th, taking a trophy at the end of his time on the racing for the meantime, and therefore he'll be absolutely pleased with that, with a 3rd place finish right at the very end, and Lewis Kenyon meanwhile struggling in the last few rounds, and for the Vulcan Motorsports 2 driver, seeing his hopes for a top 5 finish just crumble right at the very end by only a grand total of 30 points behind. Milton Tomlinson Dennis, a non-finished out after that huge battle between himself and William Humphrey, saw him into the barrier there, and the World of Racing STR Esports driver, understanding, will need to regroup if he plans to be back on the grid for season 12, and you got to feel for him in his Mercedes and Aston Martin. And Mark Hutchinson there in 8th. Well, in the end, making sure to sneak ahead of Tim Modig, who did not make it onto the grid today, and the Simcoach driver falling behind the Altitude 3M driver right at the finish, and with Brandon Dye round off the top 10, they're not in the grid as well. The InterRacing team driver just fended off Thomas Pugh, who enjoyed one of his best performances of the season today. In fact, his best result with that 6th place finish for Axis Simsport. And Dan Edvardsen not on the grid, taking 12th for Relentless Racing, and that's how the elite top 12 provisionally stands. To the pro class we go, and as we can see, Rhys Saunders there, your confirmed provisional champion, with none other than what is his 6th win of the season, the strongest record in the pro class this season by a country mile. And Fotis Katios, meanwhile, behind the Altitude 3M Esports driver for Split Straight Esports, by the best part there of none other than 104 points. But to be fair to Fotis, he has delivered plenty of entertainment this season. Whenever he's qualified poorly, he has battled his way into the podium positions. Only 1 win, that was of course at Daytona in the 2nd race of the day. He should have perhaps even more wins, but he'll come away from this season with confidence, knowing that if he can just amend his qualifying pace a little bit, he will definitely become a champion one day. Mikey Story, meanwhile, ended his season on a dismal day outside the top 10 in the race, but the Dexterous Motorsports squad driver getting enough points alongside the team to be runners-up, and the Briton on 621 points was 3rd place. Nicholas Carlson, in the end, taking 6th place here for Beowulf Racing Team, well ahead of his teammate Villa Katonen, but the 2 of them complete the top 5 there. Well done to them. And Wesley Van Rennes, not too far behind, 6th in the end, but only 10th was what he's able to achieve here at Imola. Liam Fraser took 7th there on 425 points. Ahead of Menno Blome, and Blome not making it to the grid today, meaning he lost 7th and fell to 8th, when Nick Stubb in 9th place in the end, but that 4th place, one of his best results of the season, equaling what he was able to do in round number 3, and also in race number 2 of round number 4. We'll be hoping for plenty more next time out, but he was just ahead of Nathan Anstis and then fell to 10th, with a dismal end to his season, finishing outside the top 20. Behind the UK SimRacing Maestro is Chris Jennings, with one of his most feisty performances of the season today, and Mark Johnson, his teammate, just a little bit further back for the Axis Simsport pair. Then lastly, from the top 12 of the Pro Class, we come to the top 10 of the teams. And there is your confirmation, ladies and gentlemen, on 1,440 points to the 1,397 of Dexterous Motorsports Quamar. Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing are your provisional teams champions. Congratulations to them. A huge effort across both classes. And in the end, William Humphrey and Nick Stubb landed enough points today alongside Jan Osberg and Jan Nagy to make the magic happen. Dexterous Motorsports Quamar, valiant runners up there. And meanwhile, in 3rd, the 2-pair team of Split Straight Esports is Ryan Nickerson and Fotis Katios, just outrunning Vulcan Motorsports 1 to that 3rd place spot, and indeed doing an incredible job versus the 2 elite drivers, but credit where it's due, Vulcan Motorsports also doing a brilliant job as well to finish in 4th. Moonshiners Racing Club holding on to the top 5 just by 11 points there at the end, ahead of Darkwind Racing, who could not quite launch their way back into the top 5 after falling out of it. They could not spread the wings high enough, and in the end had to worry about Axis Simsport Y getting close enough, but the Axis Simsport team in the end couldn't quite close the gap just about, and therefore had to settle for taking 7th at the very end. In fact, that's Axis Simsport Z. Let's get that correct then, not Y. I do apologise. And then Beowulf Racing Team taking 8th place there, just behind, but ahead of GPX Simsport NX by only 6 points. And then Altitude 3M Esports returning to the top 10 right at the very end and taking that 10th place spot there. They'll be pleased with that, with Rhys Saunders delivering the lion's share of the points, but Mark Hutchinson as well with an 8th place in elite class, also making a valiant contribution. So congratulations to all of our provisional champions and to all of our drivers, regardless of whether they've been champions, runner-up, and top 5 are at the very back of the field. They have made the season what it is. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to begin to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about what's going on at SimRacing International and how you can get on the grid, particularly for Season 12, details about that just around the corner. Well, for all that and more, do join our official Discord. Invite link at the very bottom of your screen, and you can get on the grid for any one of our ongoing and upcoming series, including the Thursday GT3 Championship, which has 120 drives across 2 grids or 2 splits, and of course we just concluded Season 11, but Season 12 is not too far away. Or if you're looking for racing on Sundays or at the weekend, we do of course have the UK SimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship, which is wrapping up its 17th season live from the circuit side. And this weekend we'll be presenting it, and then we've got an 18th season planned for the near future. Or if you're looking for something that's GT focused, but you want something a bit different from GT3, what about GTE? Because we've got Season 2 not too far away. We've just wrapped up Season 1, and that's going to continue on Friday evenings, particularly with the new tyre and physics models for what will be the GT cars and the introduction of rain. It could be a very good time to get on the grid here at SimRacing International for that. Meanwhile, if you're looking for something far more casual and just looking to practice and get yourself familiar with the league racing format, well, of course we do have our free-to-join practice league that does run on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings, and Saturday afternoons. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors who do include, of course, Carmate, Mon Technology, the GP2 Group, and also a big shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. And long may that recognition continue throughout 2026. We're very grateful to that status, and we do hope to keep our relationship with Motorsport UK's esports division absolutely perfect. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we bring the curtain down then on Season 11. And now, what's next? Well, the good news is you don't have long to wait, because on Thursday, the 2nd of April 2026, we will be back for Season 12. But we talked about things are changing for Season 12. What exactly is changing, I hear you ask? Let's take a look. As we can see, a new season is around the corner, but the intrigue, of course, is what's this about Masters and Superstars? Because up to this point, we've had splits. We've had Split A and Split B. We're going to be doing something a little bit different for this season, ladies and gentlemen, because, of course, over the last few seasons, Split A, Elite and Pro drives. Split B, Premier and Evo drives, and the idea being essentially you try to rise up through the ranks from Evo all the way to Elite. However, given the fact we've got such a multitude of drivers, we're going to do something a bit differently here, whereby, as you can see, we are going to have 3 driver classes in each of these splits, both Masters and Superstars, whereby you have your Pros, which in a way are your new Elite drivers, you have your Inters, which in a way are your Pro drivers, if you will, and then you do have your Evo drivers there, who are your combined Premier and Evo. So we're going down from 4 classes to 3, but we are running 2 splits in parallel. So then you might be asking the question, what exactly is the difference? Well, our Superstars, they are going to have slightly more lenient rules when it comes to things like track limit instant points and also qualifying scrutiny and other things as well, such as including car changes, where they'll be permitted to make 1 car change a season. So Superstars is going to be for drivers who want to go GT3 racing but don't necessarily want too strict a rule set. Of course, the stewarding will still be absolutely strict. They can't start knocking each other around as if it's Demolition Derby. But the idea is there's just a bit more flexibility, and it will retain the current rule set you see and have seen for Season 11. But in the Masters, we are going to be upping the odds when it comes to rules. We are going to be enforcing much stricter rules. The instant point limits will be much tighter. We'll also be seeing car changes are not allowed, or they will be penalised. That is where, if you want the real hardcore experience, you go to Masters. Meanwhile, if you're looking for something much like the status quo of what we've seen this season, you stay with the Superstars instead. But either way, whether they're in Masters or Superstars, it's all going to be a blockbuster experience, and we'll be bringing you live broadcasts from both splits every week as the drivers all get ready to take on that whole new season of racing. It's going to be one team's championship, and also we are going to have a showdown at the end of the season between our Masters and our Superstars, so therefore that will be something to look forward to after the 2 seasons have been completed, and we do have 50 personalised driver trophies to be won, of course, across our Drivers' Championships and, of course, our Teams' Championships. There's plenty to look forward to, and it all begins on Thursday, the 2nd of April, 2026. So you've got to be there and get signed up quickly, because sign-up spots have run out almost, and he would love to see you there, whether you are fresh face to sim racing or an esports professional. Professional. So that is what awaits in Season 12, ladies and gentlemen. But until then, well, of course, that concludes Season 11, the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship. You've been catching all the racing action from Split A tonight and throughout the season. And on the behalf of SimRacing International, thank you very much for tuning in. We do have our provisional champions in elite, of course, none other than Tseard Ploeg. In pro, of going to the way of Reece Saunders. And in the team's championship, we have seen none other than Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing wrap things up. And therefore, all it leaves me to say, ladies and gentlemen, is thank you very much for tuning in. We have been at SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator for Split A this season, Paul Walsh. And until next time, I definitely will be back for next season. I'll be going to Superstars to bring you the broadcast there for Season 12. But until then, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.